Hello, Globebusters. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Globebusters.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
And now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, the incredible sophistry of Albert Einstein. I am your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we have another great Wednesday night show for you tonight. I think this is one that's been long in coming because I think, personally, in my opinion, I think the word sophistry was invented for people like Albert Einstein. And for those of you that don't really know what the definition of a sophist is, or what sophistry is, it is the use of fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving. Okay? Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard, the ballers call us sophists, and, we're sophistry, and we're trying to deceive all the time. And we know that that simply is not true. But when it comes to people like Albert Einstein and those who push his nonsense, it is so out in the open. It is so in your face. It is utterly unbelievable. It follows right along with the Luciferian doctrine of turning everything backwards, upside down, inside out, just reversing it in general, and then acting like that's actually the way that it is, right? So This is something that is very, very familiar to all of us, I think, and it is utterly amazing that this reversing things works so well, right? I mean, you can tell people the sky is green right to their face, and, done correctly, you can make them believe it, with the correct amount of authority or whatever, or just the correct amount of bullshit, right? You can absolutely make them believe it. So that's why I always kind of like the saying that if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit, right? And that is exactly what Albert Einstein did. I mean, the guy was absolutely a nobody. He was promoted up to the tops of the scientific ranks by the powers that be to specifically instill this Luciferian doctrine of backwards doublespeak. And that's exactly what it is backwards doublespeak. And, none of his theories have held, although you will see everything in the mainstream media, they always make it a point to highlight that, oh, well, see, this proves Albert Einstein was right once again with relativity. And it's like, oh my God, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm sure many of you are aware that Nikola Tesla referred to Einstein as a fuzzy-haired crackpot. When Albert Einstein was asked what it felt like to be the smartest man in the world, his response was, I don't know, you'd have to ask Nikola Tesla, right? Well, I think that speaks volumes because Tesla could see the nonsense that Einstein was spouting from the get-go. And when you actually listen to the breakdown of relativity and what they're trying to tell us, what you're going to recognize is that they will tell you one thing, show you something that is completely opposite, and then tell you something that is completely backwards from that, and then show you something that is opposite from that. Ultimately, all of these positions are in stark contrast with each other, And yet they will act as if they are all supporting this nonsense that is being spouted, called the theory of general relativity. It's just unbelievable, folks. And the more you look into this, the more you are utterly astounded that anybody could get a PhD, especially with the thesis in relativity, and be anything other than insane or, just completely quack. There's no other way to put it. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to kind of keep it down to that. I've got a couple videos that we're going to watch. One is by Smarter Every Day, and that video is going to be used under fair use. However, we do know that since Destin likes to pull the strike card and stuff like that, if that happens, this show is also being broadcast on Rockfin for free. You do not have to be a member of Rockfin to be able to watch it on Rockfin. It is also being broadcast on the Globebusters D Live channel. So if YouTube does shut us down, well, que sera, then YouTube shuts us down. But we're still going to be very much legal and very much under the law by exposing this under fair use laws. And that's what we're going to be doing. But, like I said, I don't trust YouTube for 1 second. So it is going to be on a couple other channels for you. So, all right. So let's go ahead and introduce the panel for today. And then we will get on with this show. First up, we have John the Morgile. How you doing today, John? Oh, besides you're muted. There, you're unmuted.
Unmuted. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was having trouble with the button. Thank you. Thank you. Doing well, Bob. Thank you, guys. Hello, everyone. Hello. Glad to be here. A great show coming, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know you've actually done a couple videos, haven't you, John, on Einstein at some point?
Yes, I did. The one was called Einstein's Perpetual Pedestal of Correctness, because it just seems no matter what this guy thunk up, he could just never be wrong. And all of so-called science just strives to constantly prove him right for some reason. Never could quite figure that out. But if Einstein thunk it, it must be true.
That is absolutely astounding, isn't it? I mean, the way he is built up is just simply, it's incredible. It really is. So, but we're going to definitely talk about that today. And we'll also cover a few of his other exploits as well to show you that Einstein, not only was he a fraud, was he a sophist, was he a phony, was he a quack, but he was also a lot of other things too that certainly aren't very nice.
Well, the reason that I did the Einstein video, I guess was about a year or so ago, was I was hanging out with some buddies watching a football game, and my friend's brother, who was missing a leg, he had a cane and stuff, but he literally he had a couple beers in him, but he tried to hit me with his cane because I was arguing that Einstein did not invent the atom bomb. I didn't even get so far in the conversation as to say atom bombs don't really exist as far as I'm concerned, let alone atoms themselves. But yeah, almost got hit with the cane for that. So I made a whole video just kind of exposing Einstein for, well, not really inventing anything. And I'll send you a link over, Bob. We talked about it before, but he has about a dozen or so patents to his name. Most of them are like in conjunction with another inventor, except for one. The last thing Einstein was credited with inventing, which, we'll leave that as a surprise for later, but it is not very scientific, let's just say.
Yeah, I know. I know what that thing is. That's unbelievable. So, yeah, if you're a dressmaker, yeah, maybe that would be cool. But okay, well, we'll get to that. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Good Times for All, Zach, or Zachary Zabala, if you prefer. How you doing today, Zach?
Hey, Bob. Doing well. Hey, John. Hey, everybody. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I love tearing this guy down. Not only did he not really ever invent or create anything, especially on his own, like John said, he's been attached to other people's ideas, and those ideas are still not even in use today. So when you say things like, well, when you quote Einstein saying, yeah, go ask Nikola Tesla about being the smartest man alive. Well, yeah, a lot of this stuff we still use today, is still based on the stuff that Nikola Tesla created. Whereas Einstein, not so much. I don't
Yeah.
think any of his patents lasted over 20 years, like in any type of use. I know there was a refrigerator system that he attached his name to some guy who already did pretty much all the work. I think it was more of a, Albert Einstein is famous, so if I attach him to it, maybe this will take off type of thing.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
people
and
were
you know
trying
what
to
it
use him as
seemed
a
to me?
pedestal.
It seemed to me like he was just patenting the same things in different countries as well. So he was just like double dipping on the same invention that I'm not even sure was really his, but he would take it to like Germany and then to France and get his patents in all the different countries, is what it appears.
Yeah. So, and he's not even a nice guy, so you can't even say that about him. When you talk about the wise people through history, people speak of people like Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha, all these people that spoke peace and love, and everybody's kind of we're all the same, equal. And then you read some of Einstein's writings of his travels from out east. It's crazy, and it's not even hidden anymore. I mean, I brought up that one page. That's why I brought up the whole page, because it's article after article after article talking about how Albert Einstein was a huge racist. And you can see as they get away from the mainstream, they start getting a lot more graphic and calling him what he actually is. A
Yeah.
misogynistic, racist pig.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of other things too. He's bad. So, all right, cool. We'll look forward to getting to that. Let's go ahead and move on, though. Next up, we have Mr. John Savage with us. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing great, Bob. Hello, everyone. I did. I'm looking forward to this one, by the way. I did a blog post back in 2016, basically on Einstein, and I'm pleased to say it's still the quickest way to get to my blog is if you go to a Google search or any search, most of them, and just put in Einstein and the word shitbag, and it'll get right to my blog. So yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Well, now I have to try that. Einstein.
Oh yeah, I've done it multiple times.
Savage Plane. Yep.
Savage Plane.
Awesome. Well, that's good. It sounds like you're going to have some information to contribute to this as well. That's very cool. All right. Cool. Well, let's move on. Next up, we have my wife, Aisling717, or Cammie. How you doing today, Cammie?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I'm glad to be here. I don't know if anybody has been watching the chat, but I would like to dedicate today's show to what I would call the most influential woman in Flat Earth. That would be Karen B. I don't know anybody that works any harder. She is a mother. She is a warrior. She is a friend. She helps so many people behind the scenes, does so many things for different people. She designs graphics when I need them. She's a friend to me. She's a friend to all. She's putting together Flattoberfest. I'm sure everybody is aware of. In fact, she works 24/7. I don't know who works harder. And in recognition of that, if you notice in the chat, I'm asking that if you subscribe to Rockpin, you subscribe to Karen B today, and subscribe to Rockpin. You support free speech. You support everybody talking on there. I don't know anybody that deserves the support more. Also, tips today. If you guys want to give a tip or anything, do me a favor. Hit over to her YouTube or her Rockpin. Rockpin, you can do it at any given time. You can hit that tip thing, and it says $2, but when you go in there, you can do $2, $5, $10. People, if you want to tip today, it would warm my heart if you tipped to Karen B. Just again, a little bit of show of support for everything she does, and there's not enough to say what all she
Excellent.
does for how many people. So I'll be putting that out there. Make sure you subscribe to her, show her some love. And one more note with this, if you ever want to support anybody in the community, I want to just heads up, like I will not say send money to me for Karen B. I will say send money to Karen B. She has the account. Anybody can have that. Always be, heads up and aware of what you're doing and where your money is going. And so again, don't put money in my chat saying, and if you put this is for Karen B, I will send it her way. But the best thing to do is really, if you want to support somebody, send the money right to them. So I'm going to put that out there too and let you move on. But thank you, everybody. And I'll be spamming this throughout the chats.
There you go. Okay. Cool. And yeah, and she brings that up only because there has been some issue of that in the community. We won't go into any detail about it, but let's just say that if you want to donate to somebody, just donate to them. Be wary of people that are taking up collections for other people. Not generally a good idea, unless it's something very specific, like when we brought Iru to the international conference in Raleigh. That was something else. But other than that, I'd be very wary of that because you just never know. You never know. So, all right. And last, but certainly not least. Whoops.
I'm going to jump in on that. When we did do the fundraiser for Aero, this was very transparent. We did put it up on a GoFundMe page and made Aero a co-owner. The only reason we were involved in that fundraiser was the fact that we could not assign it completely over to him because they did not have access to it in Argentina. But at the whole time, he had access to see everything that came in and from where. So, and it would have been to him had we been able to make that. Just a little side note.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you have it. All right.
So there are ways to do it for other people publicly.
Yeah. So, but like I said, in general, send it right to them, and that's that way there's no mistake about it. And it's just a good thing. So, all right, last but not least, our guest of honor for today is, of course, probably the hardest working woman in Flat Earth, without a doubt. She co-hosts the Strange World show with Mark Sargent on Tuesday nights. She does about 1 million other shows with lots of people. Just Jack, she does the scriptural show, and it seems like when anybody is in need of a co-host or a stand-in, she's always there. She also is the sponsor and the organizer for the Flattoberfest events, which I think we are on our fourth one, something like that. It's getting up there. And she is just absolutely an amazing person, and I think very much underappreciated. Even though I will say that Kyle Adams did a video today on the top 10 female Flat Earth channels on YouTube, and she took second place with that with a special mention. However, in my mind, I think it should have been first place all the way because I don't know of anybody that is more dedicated to Flat Earth in this community than Karen. Simple as that. So how are you doing today, Karen?
I'm doing good. Thank you. You guys are going to make me cry. I think you did make me cry, but thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're glad to have you.
We love you, Karen.
Yep.
Well, I love you guys too.
That's awesome.
For sure.
So, and we'll be talking a little bit more about Flattoberfest here in a bit. But I think before we do that, let's go ahead and get down into this and, start going. And I am showing this, the Kyle Adams. If you guys didn't see it, the video that he did, the 10 women on, pretty good, pretty good. But like I said, Karen B will definitely be our number one for sure. All right.
And by the way, Bob, I sent you a link to that document I mentioned, the Einstein document. Whenever you get around to it, it's page 9 is the meat of it. And out of curiosity, who took the first place on that list? Just if you know.
Well, some girl that I had never heard of, and she's a flat earther, but she's very inactive and basically only had a playlist, but she had quite a few subscribers. So I think Kyle was going purely by subscriber count alone. And so she took number one. And like I said, I had never heard of her before, but I will be checking her out.
How does that? I don't understand how that works. Like, nobody's ever heard of them, but they are, of course, the most popular. So
well, what it was is she did put like Flat Earth up on her banner, and she did not make Flat Earth videos herself. Now, I liked some of the music and that I share like a lot of the taste in her, so I'm interested in her channel. So again, listing her number one because she has a lot of videos out there that are not Flat Earth related, but she is a Flat Earther was a little bit misleading. In a way, I give her lots of props for introducing it to new audiences and that too, even though I'm not familiar with her. But I think it's undisputable who the hardest worker and the most influential, making the most impact day in and day out, living flat Earth is, and that's Karen B.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so yeah, I have that document up, John, and I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing these all these refrigeration systems, and these were all like co-patents, right? And primarily, the work was all done by not Einstein himself, but his co-patenter, right?
That's what it sort of leaves me to venture a guess on, because the majority of them, it looks like this guy named Leo Szilard, not Lizard, but Szilard, did like or he was collaborator on the majority of these, like maybe a dozen or so of them. And then there's a couple of other guys that collaborated with him on 2 other inventions, and then, well, you get down to the very bottom, and in 1936, right near Halloween, Einstein invented a blouse. What? But
his one and only invention.
Yeah, that's the one where he didn't have any collaborators. But if you if you look through this document, you'll notice the before the patent number, it's like got letters. So the first one at the top is FR 647838, and then a few down is GB 303065. Well, what these letters and numbers mean is those leading first 2 letters tells you what country they're in. And you'll notice that a lot of these patents are for essentially what appears to be the same thing, just in different countries, right? So it definitely appears he was double dipping. So you've got France, GB. I want to say it's Great Britain, but it's maybe weird like China or something. I don't know. But then US, DE. So you have all these different countries that what it appears he was doing was just going around and trying to get patents in as many different countries as he could for the same thing. Now, I would imagine this day and age there's more of a universal sort of thing, but I don't know. I've never had anything patented as of yet.
Yeah, me either. But I have won a Nobel Prize, so at least I got that under my name.
Oh, nice! Congratulations.
All right, but yeah, so we go through all these, basically co-applicants, and Einstein contributed to these. But he was definitely not the primary by any means. But when it comes to the design of a blouse, there it is, Albert Einstein. What a contributor, huh? Yeah.
And if you actually, if you look up, and I could maybe send you a link, but you can get an image of what he designed. And it's just a shirt. I mean, it's a shirt. So
right.
I don't know how scientifical that actually is, but he did get it patented. So, wow.
Yeah, and you were right, John. Right there at the bottom. It says GB, Great Britain, HU, Hungary, CH was Switzerland, DE, Germany. Yeah, so you were right.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it was CH. That's the one I was twisted on. So CH, you would assume was China, but no, that's Switzerland. So no Chinese patents.
Design of a blouse. There you go. And everything else he put out.
And the refrigerator system only lasted, I don't even know how long. I believe the Tesla turbine, where he, could make cold air, did away with this type of refrigeration system.
Yeah.
And really, it's crazy to me because, in all honesty, I remember growing up and not ever being taught, but just sort of being under the assumption that Einstein had something to do with the atom bomb, or at least his theories behind it added up to that. But as we've come full circle with this whole flat Earth thing, I've come to the realization or the understanding that there really is no such thing as an atom bomb. Yep. But he is credited in that regard in a lot of ways, maybe peripherally or indirectly credited with the atomic bomb thing. But it appears that he was more into keeping shit cold than he was to blowing stuff up. So I don't know.
Yep. Or marrying his cousin, or trying to have an affair with his nieces, the guy was just a real piece of work. He was unbelievable. But we won't go there on that because really there's enough dirt on this guy. We could sit here and be digging for weeks and never get to the bottom of it. But what I want to expose today, and I'm going to play a couple of, like I said, I'm going to play a couple of videos. But what I want to expose today is just how his material, his theory of relativity is presented in utter doublespeak, right? It is unbelievable that anybody could ever believe it, to me. But you got these people, PhDs. In fact, the presenters on these two videos, I don't know if Smarter Every Day has a PhD. I think he's got a master's, at least in physics. But Gabriel Giz, whatever his name is, what's his name? Dr. Gabe Perez Giz or whatever, has a PhD in physics, and I think also a degree in astrophysics as well. But I mean, you're sitting there listening to them, and it's like you have to wonder if they're even listening to themselves, because it is just utterly beyond belief what they say.
Well, those credentials are just proof that they are well and truly brainwashed. So yeah, well done, guys.
Yeah, no kidding. So, all right. So I guess what we'll do now, I actually highlighted this video several years ago because the first thing I want to say about this particular video is I was utterly shocked when I found out, and this is the crazy thing, right? We are still to this day given credit, right? The flat earthers and the Flat Earth Society specifically is given credit for the absolutely ridiculous idea that instead of there being a gravitational force, we are given the distinct credit of saying, no. What's happening is the Earth is actually accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second, right? That is absolutely attributed 100% to the Flat Earth Society. So obviously you can imagine my surprise when I found out that the Flat Earth Society, where they got it from. You want to know where they got it from? They got it from Albert Einstein. That's his brainchild.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, it's like...
It's per second squared, isn't it? So that in itself makes it, after a while, it's going to go faster than the speed of light, which, utter ridiculousness.
Yeah, 9.8 meters per second squared means it keeps going faster and faster and faster, and it doesn't give any indication of any end to that acceleration. But that's the thing, and it is an acceleration. And the thing that I find funny about acceleration is if you look up acceleration and you look up force, right? An acceleration, in order to have an acceleration, you have to have a force that causes it, right? So it says in science, the word force has a precise meaning. At this level, it is completely appropriate to describe a force as a push or a pull. A force is not something that an object contains or has in it, right? A force is exerted on one object by another. The idea of a force is not limited to living things or non-living things. So, and that is the force in science, right? Simple definition.
Undead things have the force too.
Yeah, right. That's right, because Yoda had it when he came back, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's right. But for the most part, they're saying that this force is a pull or a push on an object. And that's how, gravity was always proposed as, this pulling or pushing down on us, on everything, right? So in order to have an acceleration, a force was absolutely required. Now what they've done is they've taken the word acceleration and twisted it up in a way that, wow. Well, we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to play this. Go ahead.
Real quick, Bob, I want to disagree with that definition. I don't believe there is anything that pulls. I believe everything is from a positive potential, seeking out, going towards a less potential area, whether it be heat, whether it be pressure, whether it be, all this different stuff. I don't believe there's any force in nature that pulls anything. I think it's always positive going towards the negative.
What about tractors?
Well, yeah, but there's still the engine
I'm
is
messing
what's
with
doing
you.
the pushing there. Yeah.
I know. I'm
Yeah,
just
but
messing with you.
I've heard Dell say this so many times, and I've thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And yeah, I agree that I don't believe that there is any pull in nature. Everything is pressure mediation. High pressure going or high potential going to low potential.
Yep.
Just
Exactly.
my 2 cents on that.
All right. So what I'm going to do, and guys, when I play this, if you want to say anything, just interrupt and I will definitely pause it for sure. But, that's the one thing I definitely wanted to point out, that it was never the Flat Earth Society that introduced the disk shooting up in space at 9.8 meters per second squared at all. In fact, you're going to find from this PhD physicist, Dr. Gabe Perez Giz, who is currently working for PBS, but he's got his PhD at Princeton, right? Ivy League school. And he's going to double speak all the way through this and tell you what it's all about and act like you're supposed to understand all of it. And that, he's going to look like some sort of a smarty pants bringing it to you. Now, of course, all of the ballers are going to come and say, "Oh, you flat tards, you guys are just retarded," right? That's what they do, because they're going to buy into this 100%. And that just goes to show you how brainwashed they are, but it's pretty funny. All right, so I'm going to start this. And like I said, anybody wants to start to comment, just start talking and I will hit the pause immediately, okay?
Well, Bob, it's not that he expects us to understand it. It's that he says to you, don't worry about all this nonsense. Don't worry about all this if you don't understand it. And then comes across as though he understands it. Or is sort of working it out in his head. So yeah, it's sort of.
Well, I understand it. I understand it's complete and utter bullshit. That's what I understand.
That's where my understanding gets to.
Yep. And tell me, guys, if you do not see the Luciferian doctrine at work here, I mean the complete Luciferian methodology of absolutely turning things backwards, upside down, inside out, and then referencing off of those counterpoints at work here. If you can't see that, then you are seriously blind. But I'm sure a lot of the people, especially, the normal Globebusters audience, will be able to see this quite easily. The ballers, not so much, because they're pretty well indoctrinated. But all right, so let's go ahead and hit this. And again, just stop me if you want to comment. Here we go.
That an apple falls because a gravitational force accelerates it toward the ground. But what if it's really the ground accelerating up to meet the apple?
Yeah, remember that? What if it is the ground accelerating up to meet the apple? Just like what the Flat Earth Society supposedly proposed, but no, it was Einstein.
It was Einstein who said that if you're walking along a pavement and you fell over and smashed your head into the ground, it's just as likely that you fell over and smashed your head into the ground, but it's just as likely that the ground came up and smashed you in the face.
Right. That's pretty much the whole thing with one of those relativities that he came up with. Is like if you're in a trolley car going 20 miles an hour, is the church going past you at 20 miles an hour, or are you actually going past the church at 20 miles an hour, right? I mean, that's right. Pretty much what he was saying with relativity. I can't remember if it's general or special. Maybe special, I guess.
This is the sort of stuff you only really come up with after smoking heavily, amounts of weed in Amsterdam or something. I think, then you can get your head around it.
You'd have to do something like that. I mean, what else would make you think that like the whole ground that you're standing on and everything on it is the thing moving rather than the stupid apple?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, that's the whole thing. I mean, the entire Luciferian proposition is to tell you that what you experience is not it at all. In other words, they try and tell you that curved is level. They try to tell you that, you sense no motion and yet you're rocketing at millions of miles per hour in 8 different directions. They try and tell you that, the sun is stationary and we're going around it, when in fact, the sun is going around us, and it's just, everything is completely backwards. And, and we see this, right? These are things that appeal to our senses, right? But their job is to make you think that your senses are completely worthless, and they will even come up with some things that are really good things. Like, oh, see, your eyes tricked you. And yes, your eyes can deceive you. There's no doubt about that. But in issues like this, no, I don't think so. That's never going to happen. And not only that, when they will go on and beyond this and say that you don't experience this because of your vestibular senses are not picking up on these motions or whatever. Well, they're saying that, that's because your vestibular senses aren't sensitive enough. And it's like, well, yeah, they would be sensitive enough. And even if they weren't, our instrumentation absolutely would be, right? And we have nothing that picks up that motion. So, that kind of defeats them at every corner. So, all right. So we've gotten 13 seconds into this. Let's see if we can go a little further this time. Let's go.
Suppose I drop an apple. According to Isaac Newton, the ground can be considered at rest. Earth applies a gravitational force to the apple, and that force causes the apple to accelerate downward. But according to Einstein, there's no such thing as a gravitational force. Instead, it's more appropriate to think of the apple as stationary, and the ground, along with everything on the ground, as accelerating upward into the apple. Now, what I just said sounds preposterous and maybe even moronic, but it's not sophistry.
Actually, yes, it is sophistry.
Yes, it is.
Because it is preposterous and it is moronic. And what you are saying is a verbatim quote to what the flat earthers have been taking the heat on for centuries, right? How stupid this idea is, right? And here it is, Mr. Perez is going to detail it as to how this was entirely Einstein's brainchild. And not only was it his brainchild, but the mainstream adopts it and sees it as reality to this day. Unbelievable. Let's continue.
There's something substantive here, and today I'm going to clarify what exactly this point of view means, why Einstein came to adopt it, and how it planted the seeds for what would eventually become general relativity. You ready? Okay, bear with me for a minute, because we need to begin with some Physics 101 and Newton's laws of motion.
Okay, and by the way, John, it was general relativity, not special relativity, that this goes towards. But yeah, it's just nonsense.
To analyze motion, you need what's called a frame of reference. That's just some XYZ axes to label points in space and a clock to track time. The reason you need a frame of reference is that you can only measure motion relative to other things.
That is absolutely not true. There's your first fallacy right there. He's telling us that we can only measure motion relative to other things, when in fact, the most obvious thing that you can measure motion relative to was your previous position, right? Where were you? Where are you now? How far have you gone from there? In what amount of time did you take to get there? That then reveals the speed at which you got there, right? And we are not referencing anything else other than past where you were and present where you are and where you've traveled in between. It's as simple as that. So there's the first fallacy, right? Bam.
What if you were in a room, you had all your senses sort of taken away from you in a dark room, or you're on a plane or something and it hasn't started moving yet, so you have no frame of reference, but you feel inertia, you feel centrifugal forces. What a nonsense statement.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing about this whole, and I've said this a million times, this whole nonsense of quote unquote frame of reference. This is nothing more than a sophistry tactic that is made once again to deceive. It's like, yes, we understand when you initiate a frame of reference, you're talking about an object's motion, non-motion, whatever, with respect to something else. But they're trying to tell you that there is no absolute motion, that everything is moving with respect to something else. And what they have seemed to annihilate the idea of is that you yourself could not have had any motion between where you were and where you are now, because in that definition, it doesn't fit to what they're saying about, a frame of reference. It's just stupid. It's utterly ridiculous that they go there. But let's continue.
How did this even leave the room that they were discussing it in?
I know, right?
Like, seriously. Because even Nora just said the same thing that I was thinking in the chat. I'm like, okay, if the apple falls in North America somewhere and an apple falls in Europe somewhere and you're on a ball, I mean, how many directions is the ball moving to account for all these apples falling off the freaking tree at the same time? Or does only one apple fall down on the whole Earth at one point, and then the Earth just runs around catching the
falling
apples?
in all directions at once, Karen.
Unless the Earth is flat, Karen. That's
Well, yeah,
Right?
those are
They
all
have-
different frames of reference. Each apple has its own frame of reference. That's how you have to look at it. You can't put them all on the same frame. That'd be too much like reality. Come on.
God.
It is insane. And it gets better, and we're going to keep ripping it apart. But let's continue.
If that concept is not familiar to you, you need to pause me right now and go watch this super awesome 1960s black and white video from MIT all about frames of reference. It's amazing, and I promise you won't be disappointed.
Now, it isn't amazing, and it was really disappointing, I'll tell you that, because essentially all they're doing is show a frame of reference with one thing with respect to something else. Once again, they completely omit the idea that you could ever have your own frame of reference of where you are with respect to where you were, right? It always has to be with respect to something else elsewhere. And that's the only thing that has any validity. But, you know, we know that that's not true because we've all pulled up next to a car, right? And we're kind of being a little bit of a daydream or something like that. And maybe the car next to us will start moving a little bit. And then we go, oh shit, and you jam on your brakes, right? Because you think you're moving. That is a frame of reference that basically has fooled you, right? Because you haven't moved anywhere. And because you were paying attention to that frame of reference, you were deceived, right? And this is exactly what they're trying to do to you full time on everything and make you believe that this is how it works. And there's no other way for it to work.
I guarantee you, I've never sat on a train and looked out the window and seen the platform moving away and thought, shit, the platform's moving.
Exactly.
It only ever happens with another train. And you think, am I moving? Are they moving? Or a car, like you said. But you never think, oh, the runway's
Surely
moving.
he meant it as just another way to think of motion, though, right? I mean, he didn't mean it literally, or did he? I don't know, because like when you see some of these parrots, like the stuff that we're watching now, they present it as if he meant literally, like the platform is moving while the train is stationary. But I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like maybe it's just another way to look at motion, right? I mean, I don't know.
We'll find out.
Right.
He was in a coffee shop in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can get into all kinds of trouble in those places. All right, let's continue.
Welcome back. Now, Newton's laws can't tell you whether a frame of reference is really at rest or really moving at constant velocity because that distinction is meaningless and simply a matter of point of view. However, interestingly, Newton's laws can tell you whether your frame of reference is really accelerating or not. Here's how that works. Take an object with no forces on it and let go of it. If it stays right where it is, then your frame of reference is not accelerating, and we call it an inertial frame. Now, in Newtonian physics, inertial frames are special because Newton's second law, F equals ma, is only valid in inertial frames. In other words, the net force on an object will equal that object's mass times its acceleration only if you're measuring that acceleration using an inertial frame. For example, suppose that you're in a train car that starts accelerating uniformly forward along a flat track. Relative to the car's interior, you will accelerate backward, even though you can't identify any horizontal forces on you. So inside the train car, F decidedly does not equal ma, and the train car's frame of reference is not inertial. In contrast, a frame attached to the tracks pretty much is inertial, at least if you disregard Earth's rotation, because relative to that frame, you don't accelerate at all. Instead, the train car accelerates forward underneath you. Now, more generally, any frame that accelerates relative to an inertial frame will not be inertial. You got that? Inertial frame and non-accelerating frame are synonyms in Newtonian physics. In fact, you can think of inertial frames as the standard against which you measure true acceleration. And from the perspective of inertial frames, motion obeys a simple rule. F equals...
That is such nonsense. Again, do you, when we're measuring speed, right? When I go out to the quarter mile drags, right? And I'm going to race my car, and I'm going to do the quarter mile, and I'm going to, the light's going to turn green. I'm going to hit that gas, and I'm in my top fuel dragster, and 6 seconds later, I'm down at the other end. Now, are they measuring that with respect to the dragster that's running next to me, or with respect to the end of the track? Or are they measuring that with respect to where I started from and where I wound up and how fast I got there? The answer is clearly where I was to where I am, and it has nothing to do with an inertial frame. And so his whole statement is complete and utter horseshit. It's just nonsense. It's unbelievable anybody buys this.
Couldn't I argue if I was drag racing? Hey, wait a minute. That last guy who ran last race, his inertial frame was a little faster, I think. So I'm going to have to run again. You know?
Yeah, you could do that.
Again. I mean, yeah. Come on. That's just ridiculous.
It really is.
You'd be laughed out of the stadium is what would happen.
Yeah, you would be. And this is the crap they're trying to peddle on you for everything. It's just amazing. And of course, all of this comes back to, because what they ultimately have to do is convince you that what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're not feeling, what you're measuring, what you aren't measuring is not what's happening at all, right? Because they have to be able to turn everything around so that go means stop, stop means go, fast means slow. Everything is backwards. And this is exactly the whole reason for this. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, the definition of sophistry. Let's continue.
MA. All right, let's look at things from the train car's frame of reference, though, a little more carefully. Inside that accelerating train car, not only does everything accelerate backward for no apparent reason, everything accelerates backward together. You, a book, and an elephant will all lurch toward the back of the car with the same acceleration. Remember, from the preferred point of view of the inertial frame that's attached to the tracks, you, the book, and the elephant are all stationary, and it's only the train car that actually accelerates forward to intercept you. So of course you move in lockstep as viewed in the train car's frame. But hold on a second. There's something else familiar that makes people, books, and elephants accelerate in lockstep. The Newtonian force of gravity. In fact, in the absence of air resistance, that's the defining feature of gravity. So in the train car's frame, which is accelerating forward, it's as if there's an additional gravitational field that points backward. So accelerated frames of reference mimic a gravitational field in the opposite direction of the frame's acceleration. That's interesting. If you combine that extra fake gravitational field with the actual gravitational field of the Earth, which points down, it looks like there's a net gravitational field inside the car that points at some angle down and back.
Right. But the problem is that they have now claimed time and time again that there is no gravitational field, let alone a net gravitational field. Now, they're going to turn right around and say that in stark opposition, because let's go back and let's look at what LIGO was trying to detect, right? LIGO was looking for a gravitational wave, right? And of course, the field would be waving, right? If it's in motion, it's waving through the field. And that was the very thing that supposedly traveled 1.3 billion light years across the galaxy to then cut across the LIGO interferometer arms and shorten them by 1/1000th the width of a proton and set off a positive alarm for a gravitational wave, right? So,
oh my God.
I'm telling you, you would think it would really hurt to get hit in the eyeball with something going at the speed of light. I'm just saying. I mean, come on.
Well, and of course, the response to that is, well, yeah, but it doesn't have any mass to it. It's like, well, then if it doesn't have any mass, then it's not physical. That's another thing that they tell you, a massless particle. What kind of, that's BS. How can you have a particle that has no mass? That is nothing more than doublespeak.
Well, it would have to have some form of mass. I mean, we're talking about a photon, theoretically, is what they're talking about. I mean, sure, it has very little mass, you would assume, right? But I mean, don't they say that it has some mass? I'd have to look into that because
no, they actually claim it is massless completely. Do you remember the episode we did called Sunday Mass, John?
Where probably
I was
they say it's massless for sure.
Yeah, they do.
Massless.
The guy's talking about this pressure that's going on inside of this box, right? By these photons all jumping around inside of there, which supposedly have no mass, yet they're exerting a pressure as if there was a mass in there, right? It's like, oh my God.
My question is how do you get something with no mass to travel at the speed of light for 1.3 billion light years? I mean, God, that's so silly.
Well, yeah. Or how do you even get something with mass to do that? It's just.
How do you measure something without mass?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly, Karen. How do you measure it without mass? I mean, we can measure effects. Yeah. So, I mean, that can give us an idea of what, flat earthers, or I would call a rate of induction rather than a speed of light, right? But it's basically a rate of induction in which the ether is illuminated. And this is why the etheric theory works so much better than the nonsense relativity that Einstein had to eliminate. Why? Because the Michelson-Morley experiment, they couldn't explain that away any other way because there was no 30 kilometer per second motion of the Earth around the sun. So, first they came up with the Lorentz contraction, which said that, our measuring rod, which we were using to measure it, was shrinking by just that amount as we, moved in the direction of Earth's travel. And that was basically laughed out of science. So when that happened, in a desperation move, what Einstein did was mathematically eliminate the luminiferous ether, something that had been proven in existence for centuries, literally, before Einstein was ever around. And there's a ton of tests and experiments proving that it's there. Right up to our modern day fiber optic gyro, where we detected a 15 degree per hour rotation of that very same luminiferous ether. So, all right, let's continue.
Well, they even admit that this thing is there. They've renamed it the Higgs field back in '86, and Nobel laureates come out and say, well, yeah, it's there. I mean, that one guy, I forget who was interviewing him, that asshat. He was from
it was
Arizona State University.
Yeah. God, what the hell's his name? He's always one of the professors. But yeah, he interviewed him, and that's the first thing he asked him: does the ether exist? And he said, absolutely, it does. And all the Nobel laureates say that. God, what the hell is that guy's name? I can't believe we're forgetting it.
What was it? Lawrence Krauss.
Lawrence Krauss. That's right.
Yeah.
Also, wasn't it on Rose 777's channel that we did a show, I think, called One Fish, Two Shift, Red Shift, Blue Shift, pretty much disproving that light was a particle. And John, by the way, I always loved your visual of no matter how little it weighed, can you imagine something coming at you that fast and hitting you in the eye? How couldn't it hurt?
Yeah, you would think, even
think
with no mass. Really, though, if something has no mass, how could it be a particle? I mean, it's
not. Yeah. It can't be. It's Bell's theorem and Polaroid filters completely disprove it from being a particle. Now what they say is it's why it's here. It's a wave, and it goes through with our magnetic field and everything. But when it jumps out to outer space, I believe it changes into a particle, so it can zoom through space.
That's convenient.
Yes, that's convenient.
I wish I could.
It doesn't work like that here. Again, they disconnect reality entirely. And again, taking a few Polaroid filters and Bell's theorem totally disproves that. And so I recommend anybody wanting to know more, look into Rose 777 and One Fish, Two Fish, Red Shift, Blue Shift. It doesn't work.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it is so ridiculous. So many other things that have disproven this utter doublespeak. And guys, they're going to turn right around and say the opposite of what they've just said once again, right? In stark contrast. So they've turned one direction, then they've turned another, then they're going to turn another one. And all of them are in stark contrast of each particular viewpoint. Well, I guess maybe they have to have their own frame of reference, right? Give me a break. Anyway, let's continue.
Destin, at Smarter Every Day, has a pretty famous video of a helium balloon in an accelerating car that happens to illustrate this point really well. Destin generously gave us permission to show it, but you should check out the full video by clicking over here or following the link we have down in the description. Now, as you can see, when Destin hits the accelerator, a pendulum hanging from the ceiling tilts back, while a balloon that's tied to the floor tilts forward. Destin explains that air is piling up in the rear of the car and getting slightly denser there, so the balloon is just trying to go toward the less dense air near the front. All of that is true. But there's another way to think about this situation. You could also think that the car's forward acceleration is mimicking some extra gravity pointing backward. Combine that with Earth's real gravitational field, and it's as though the total gravity inside the car points down and back at around a 30-degree angle. That is the new vertical, and the pendulum string and the balloon string are just aligning with the vertical the way they always do. The pendulum hangs down, and the balloon aims up, because air is denser on the ground and less dense at higher altitudes. In fact, the accelerated frame of reference of Destin's car is completely indistinguishable from having that car stationary on the surface of some other planet with slightly bigger gravity than Earth and tilted upward by about 30 degrees. You see what I mean? If you blacked out the windows and put perfect shock absorbers in the minivan, then for all Destin and his kids know, they're completely at rest, tilted upward on another planet in a perfectly inertial frame. Huh.
Yeah, I don't think so. Do you guys think that even if the windows were blacked out, you would not sense any acceleration? Do you honestly believe that?
Not for a second. Not for a second.
What a stupid analogy. Oh my God. And this is what we've got, Karen. I mean, this is what they give us. It's like, oh no, that'd be a perfect initial frame. Nobody would ever be able to tell it. And again, like I said, even if our vestibular senses were poor enough that we would never be able to register that, which I highly doubt, our instrumentation absolutely would. And that's one thing that ball earthers have never, ever been able to show is any inertial change through any aphelion, perihelion, any rotational angle change throughout any one of the multiple acceleration, right, direction changes that are going on from, starting with the 1,037.5 mile per hour Earth rotation to the 67,000 mile an hour rotation around the sun, to the 500,000 mile an hour rotation around the Milky Way, to the 1.3 million mile an hour rotation around the Great Attractor, and on and on and on. All of these things are curvilinear paths, which means that every freaking one of them is going to have its own acceleration variable, right?
And just think of the different combinations therein. I mean, perihelion and aphelion aside, right? I mean, that is something that we should be able to detect for sure. But think of the combination of the Earth's orbit along with the orbit of the sun around the galaxy in their model. I mean, you would have just an infinite number of combinations of these things, which would leave every second of every day a unique experience in acceleration. And yet, there's never been a single shred of evidence to support this acceleration, meaning, well, the Earth is stationary. I mean, that's the only thing that really makes sense in this, is that the Earth does not move.
I like to compare it to that carnival ride. It's called the Scrambler. Have you guys been on it? It looks like a spider, and then it's got, like 6 or 8 cars hanging off it like a spider, and the center turns, and then each car turns, and it flings you to the outside of the car, and it makes you like squish people, and it makes you feel like you're going to throw up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what their motion is basically supposed to be, but then add like 6 more motions on top of that, because really that's only 2, right? Is the things moving in the center, and then the cars are moving on the outside. That's just 2, isn't it?
Yeah, you would have to have like that whole machine on another one of those machines,
right?
Kind of doing
on
the same
another
thing,
one,
but faster.
On another one, on another one.
Yeah. I wouldn't get on that ride. I'll tell you that.
There's no way that's happening. No fucking way.
I would. I'll do it.
All right, let's move on.
Now, in Newtonian physics, this is just an accounting trick that has no broader significance. Really, Destin's car is accelerating, and this extra backwards gravity is fake. But Einstein asked, hold on, what if the so-called real downward gravity from Earth is also fake? A side effect generated because Earth's surface is really accelerating upward. Now, you know what Newton would say? He'd say, that's crazy. He would remind us that inertial frames are the standard for measuring true acceleration.
So you have to ask yourself something here. Let's back up here just a second. Why does he say this?
Earth is also fake.
Wait a
side
minute.
effect. Hold on. What if the so-called real downward gravity from Earth is also fake? A side effect generated because Earth's surface is really accelerating upward. Now you know what Newton would say. He'd say, that's crazy. He would remind us that inertial frames are the standard for measuring true acceleration.
Okay, so obviously the downward acceleration is not fake because we know it's there. We can measure variance in it. We can calculate ballistic motion with it. But so it's not fake, period. But according to Einstein, it's fake because there is no downward acceleration, but rather it's an upward acceleration of the entire plane or the entire planet, right? Again, exactly the nonsense that they accuse the flat earthers of coming up with, at the Flat Earth Society. So
he had to be how do you come up with that and think you live on a ball?
Well,
seriously.
Because it's this whole line of thinking. When you misdirect people to the point where their head is whirled, and when I say whirled, I mean WHIRLED.
Right.
They don't have a damn clue, right? Because up is down, left is right. They don't know what's going on. They really don't. And so when you get this doublespeak hammered through their head, they are much more apt to accept anything like that, right? Because, it sounds absurd, to be able to say, oh, well, instead of tripping on the sidewalk and hitting your face on the sidewalk, that the sidewalk jumped up and hit you in the face. But that is precisely what they want you to think. It's unbelievable. And they're serious about it. So let's continue.
It's inversion, isn't it? As you said, everything they're telling you is an inversion of what we experience and what we see in reality. And I think that is their entire modus operandi. That is
fact. That is the Luciferian methodology. Turn it around, turn it upside down, turn it backwards, make it anything but what it is. Make it just opposite of what it actually is and run with it. And that is their modus operandi.
If you watch the news, I pretty much as a default stance believe the opposite of what their narrative is. And I got to tell you, it really hasn't served me that wrong so far.
I know, John. Yeah. I determined that years ago. It's like, you know what? If they tell you it's good for you, it's probably bad for you. They tell you it's bad for you, probably good for you. And boy, is that ever more true than ever in today's world, right? Yeah. And if you're not paying attention to that in today's world, you're in deep doo-doo. All right, let's continue.
You can only say Earth is really accelerating upward if you can identify an inertial frame relative to which Earth's surface accelerates upward. And there's obviously no inertial frame like that, right? Well, not so fast, says Einstein. Maybe there is. What about a frame that's in free fall? Think about it. If I put you in a box and drop you off a cliff, then in the frame of the box, everything just floats, weightless. The falling frame of the box behaves just like a stationary inertial frame that's way out in intergalactic space where there's no gravity. So why can't the box's frame be inertial? Well,
because it's in motion, you tard. That's why. Oh my God. I can't even believe he is asking questions like this. Right. Oh my God. All right, let's continue.
That's the whole thing about the ball Earth. It's like on flat Earth, we know that there is a stationary reference frame. The world is at rest. But when you consider the world to be in all these different orbital motions, there is nothing at rest. And so you I guess technically you could think of the falling box as the inertial reference frame, but only in that sort of mindset. When you realize that the Earth is flat and motionless, never moved a smidgen, then all of this sort of relativity just goes right out the window. It really does.
And this is why they've got to come up with this bollocks, is to try and explain away their own bollocks of you're living on a spinning ball in a vacuum of space. It's
exactly
Occam's razor will always overcome this crap.
We're not doing things, there are some instances where we will check our position or certain, properties of where we are or something like that with respect to something else, right? But to completely say that is the only way to do that, and because there is nothing that is in an absolute frame of reference except something, ironically, that is moving. Another one of those things, right? So there's nothing that's truly stationary unless it's moving. And in that case, it's truly stationary. Now, we have just heard them say that, right? It's like, holy shit, Batman, come on. All right, let's continue.
But because, Newton says, that frame can't be inertial. It's really accelerating downward at 9.8 meters per second squared. The interior just seems like 0g because the downward acceleration acts like a fake extra upward gravitational field that, from the perspective of the box, just happens to exactly cancel the real downward gravitational field of Earth. By coincidence. Really, Newton? Really? Einstein says, look, buddy, I'm just following your rules. You establish the test for what an inertial frame is. Release a force-free object, and it stays put.
So in case you guys haven't caught on yet, this is basically a theoretical debate that he's putting on between Einstein and Newton, and about how, Einstein's relativity is actually more valid, right? His explanation of the sidewalk hitting you in the face rather than you tripping and hitting the sidewalk is more valid, right, than Newton's classical physics, right? And classical physics is how things were done for a long time, where there is a direct causal effect, right? In other words, you do this, something reacts with that. You add this, something reacts with that, right? There's always a direct causal type of relationship that's going on. But
science, you mean?
Yeah, real science, actual real science that's testable, repeatable, and not just made up horseshit by telling you that, this is the way that it works. Everything is backwards and nothing is the way that you see it, which by the way, is not testable at all, right? He's going to make some statements. I don't know if this one or if it's in the next video, but he's going to, write out these mathematical equations and say, well, what this tells us is such and such. It's like, yeah, it may tell us that, but there's no way to prove it. There's no way to measure it. There's no way to put it to test. There's no way to put it to experiment. There's no way to hypothesize it. There's nothing you can do with it except do this ridiculous thought experiment. And that's it.
Let's not forget that Einstein later on, I think it was 1949, in his book, In My Later Years, I think it was, I've got it on the shelf, he said, there's not a single concept of which I am convinced that it will stand firm, and I feel uncertain whether I'm in general on the right track. His words.
Yeah, exactly.
At least he was honest about that.
Yeah, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
And Newton said that he wanted nothing to do with gravity being this bending of space-time or anything.
Spooky action at a distance.
That's it, yeah.
Yep. And that is exactly right. Newton wanted nothing to do with spooky action at a distance. And remember, Newton's idea of gravity, even though I don't agree with, his essential, premise that it is a mass attracting mass. I mean, I can say that through the experiments that Zach has done and that we've talked about, you could make a case for that. You could. But there is something that is a lot more logical than that, far more logical, and that is when you get into the electrostatic realm. And mind you, you have to understand that the gravity was made what it was so that they could expand not only the obvious downward acceleration that we do experience in everyday life, but they wanted to be able to expand it out to heavenly bodies. The problem is, in the flat Earth model, there are no other heavenly bodies that we have to keep in orbit around us. In the flat Earth model, it is an electrostatic downward acceleration vector, right, that keeps us on the ground, but it is only in this realm. It's only in this realm, which has a flat base and a flat top, if you will, which acts as the firmament. There is a charge potential that is applied to the ground, earth ground, and the firmament, and we know that it's there. We can measure it at 100 volts per meter. It's been measured all the way up to 50 kilometers. and more, I'm sure, which of course is 5 million volts. And if we're accurate about our, estimate of the firmament ceiling being at about 100 kilometers, which is about 62 miles, then we're talking about 10 million volts of electrostatic potential, which we see reflected in things like lightning strikes, sprites, elves, other types of electrical discharges, things that actually we can prove and replicate with plasma physics right here in any lab, right? It doesn't require us making up complete backwards nonsense physics. We can actually test it and replicate it and make models of it and say, look, isn't this amazing how this works, right? We don't have to come up with all this theoretical nonsense and try and twist your head off to get you to accept this ridiculous position, right? It just works better. It just does. So let's continue.
Well, yeah, and the fact that in today's physics classes, at least if you have a good physics teacher, he's not going to teach you that gravity is making the apple fall on Newton's head like this guy is trying to portray it as. Gravity is there to tell us what the lights in the sky are doing. Gravity does not take effect until there is a moon orbiting a planet orbiting a star, or that star orbiting a solar system. That's gravity. These are electrically neutral bodies interacting with each other. That's how gravity works. Here in Earth realm, anything we can measure, it's all inside of an electric field. None of it is electrically neutral. It's all connected.
That's right.
So in today's physics, what this guy is saying is wrong. He's not even mentioning the electric field or electricity. They don't mention that to us. I was taught Newton when I was in school.
So was
Newton
I.
did this and figured, yeah, that's crazy. That's 100 years old, out of date. And then they said, well, Einstein came up with relativity, and they didn't really even get into it because it's so nonsensical. They just say, oh, it's really hard to understand, and that's for advanced physics. You have to wait to get that when you're in college.
Yep.
And it's like, come on. Yeah,
Exactly.
they didn't even
That's
mention.
later on down the brainwashing line. You haven't had enough pre-brainwashing for that type of brainwashing yet. First, we got to do the pre-wash, and then you can do the full wash.
Yep.
Free rinse cycle.
We laugh, but it's true. It really is. The more, the higher degree you have, the more indoctrination you have endured, and the less critical you are able to think, point blank. And it is astounding how many PhD level morons there are out there that couldn't see the obvious if it was stuck to their nose. It's just incredible. So, all right, let's continue on, guys.
Stationary frames in intergalactic space pass that test, but freely falling frames here on Earth also pass that test if your so-called gravity is fictitious. More to the point, Newton, if you're inside the box, there's no way for you to know that you're not in intergalactic space. This inability to distinguish free fall from lack of gravity has a name, by the way. Einstein called it the equivalence principle. And if you buy it, then maybe the falling frames really are inertial. If so, then it's the falling frames that establish the standard of non-acceleration, in which case, it's really the ground that's accelerating, upward. And what we've always been calling a gravitational force is an artifact of being in an accelerated frame of reference.
Oh my God. The inability to distinguish free fall from gravity, right? So basically, if you're just hanging there in space, right? Well, first of all, you don't ever just hang there in space unless you're in this theoretical, what do they call them? Lagrange points, right? Where you're just hanging there. But other than that, they're trying to say that it's essentially the same thing to be in a state where you are falling around something at this 9.8 meters per second squared, because you are experiencing weightlessness. So first they're saying that there is no gravity, then there is gravity, but it only works under this condition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it is so confusing. God, it makes me confused even trying to talk about it,
Yeah, don't try and explain it, Bob. Your head's just going to hurt.
I know. It's, and I just sit there and I shake my head at it going, my God. And this guy, he actually thinks he gets it. He really does. And if he does, man, I would hate to be inside of his head. That'd be one screwed up puppy. So let's continue.
It's not different from the weird backward jolt that you experience on the train that you know perfectly well isn't being caused by anything. So why are you insisting that the downward jolt we experience every day on Earth has a physical origin?
Because the backwards jolt that we experience on the train is because the train is in forward acceleration. Dirk?
Yeah, because it has a physical origin.
Yes.
Why would we, you know?
With a very physical origin. My good God. Oh.
I've seen people like him in coffee shops in Amsterdam. I just have to say, with the sort of shadowed eyes and lisps.
Yeah,
This
I mean,
is retarded. It's literally retarded.
It is.
Just retarded.
Yeah, it is. It is beyond
Just
belief.
so retarded.
It only works if you disconnect your brain and look to memorize them back. As soon as you think about them, they lose all. I mean, it gets silly. It really, really does.
And look at his face. Like that's it. That sums it up to that face right there.
Oh, and it's only going to get worse in the next video. I mean, in the next video, you're not going to believe where they take this. So prepare yourself. All right, let's continue.
Maybe gravity, just like that backward jolt on the train, is an illusion.
I don't
Doesn't that
think
point
so,
of view seem
Tim.
Simpler? Now Newton says, nice try, Einstein, but you
Smoke
forgot
'em if
something.
you got 'em.
Earth is round. Down isn't really down, it's radially inward. And this creates two problems with thinking about freely falling frames as inertial or thinking about gravity as an illusion. First, two objects in a falling box are falling toward Earth on not quite parallel radial spokes. So from the perspective inside the box, they won't actually remain stationary.
Yeah, right. The only problem with that is that has never been proven ever. In fact, the R value has never been proven ever. So any consequent, anything that you derive from that, like this horse shit, is not real. Okay? Again, it's just very imaginative thinking with absolutely zero experimental or physical proof for backing. There is none. Okay? So, just dream on, Gabe. Dream on. Let's continue.
They accelerate toward each other slightly, even though there are no forces on them, in seeming violation of F equals ma. Second, by your criterion, Einstein, orbiting frames of reference, like on the space station, should also be considered inertial. But those frames accelerate relative to frames that are just falling straight down. And if you recall at the beginning of the episode, inertial frames aren't supposed to accelerate relative to each other. Huh, that's a good point. So it looks like game over for Einstein, right? Well, not quite. It turns out...
Okay, guys, here it is. This is where Einstein wins this hypothetical discussion with Newton, right? About the idiotic notion of Earth, of the Flat Earth Society's credited, thing of Earth rising at 9.8 meters per second squared. And how does he win this debate? Well, he says that the little trick to it, the caveat to it, is that you have to be in a flat world or a flat universe, a flat construct, or a flat Earth. Okay? I swear to God, he says this. You're about to hear it. And so anybody ever, hits you with that stupid ass Flat Earth Society stuff, again, point them directly at Einstein and this guy and the mainstream world that is trying to tell us that this is actually happening even on a ball. And that's where I said, this gets even more stupid on the next video, because you can't have that happen on a ball, because on a ball, you have relative directions for up and down, which again, when you're dealing in relativity, you're dealing in absolute directions, right? So, and we'll get to that. And that's why they have to confuse this, but let's continue on. So here it comes. Here comes the big kicker for the Einstein, going to kick the field goal out of the park and win this. Flat Earth forever.
Aren't supposed to accelerate relative to each other. Huh, that's a good point. So it looks like game over for Einstein, right? Well, not quite. It turns out that there's a loophole that makes Einstein's viewpoint self-consistent. The rule that inertial frames can't accelerate relative to each other turns out only to be true if the world has what's called a flat geometry. If in
What? I mean, can you believe this shit? had to play that again just because it's like, what?
Can't accelerate relative to each other turns out only to be true if the world has what's called a flat geometry. If instead, the world is a non-Euclidean and curved spacetime, then straight line at constant speed doesn't mean what you think it means. And it turns out that inertial frames in a curved spacetime can do almost anything they want.
Right, so a straight line at constant speed doesn't mean what you think it does, because what it really means is a changing speed in a curved line. That's
Right.
what he's saying.
Meanwhile, he's got a cartoon behind him of like a piece of bubble gum going down a green funnel telling you that's what Earth's doing. And straight lines aren't what you think they are. If Earth is in this cartoon behind me, it's...
I know.
I want what he's smoking.
Yeah, so what it really is that, again, they take the measurements, they get the same information. Nobody explains it better than Zach Good Times for All with the electrostatic acceleration video. But what's happening is they are dealing with the same information, the reality. They are dealing with reality numbers, but they have to make it work with the ball, and it doesn't. So in order to get it to work with a ball, because the math points to flat, everything about it points to flat, works with flat, it's very easy. Now what you have to do is curve space-time around it so it just feels like it's flat to us by inventing a curved space-time imaginary concept. And they called it, if you can memorize these facts and come up with, because again, they can back it up with the math, which again, you can back up anything with math. You can back engineer math to say what you wanted to say. That's solving, solving for it. So, well, the only way to make this work is back engineering the math. So if you're really smart, you can memorize the math and understand the math, but you have to look past the obvious that we're making this up. We're making it up. We're making up an excuse because reality does not match what we have. So therefore,
that's right. But the more
must exist.
The more important part of this, as Karen pointed out, we've got a ball that is being, this is how they demonstrate gravity, right? Or this motion, right? They have this space-time, that's the green part. And then they have, let's just say that's Earth, the little pink ball. And because it's bending space, basically all of the objects want to fall into that hole. But what they're demonstrating with that is that there must be a preferred direction in space, because if it's bending that fabric down in one direction, and things want to fall down in that one direction. So what they're trying to do then is prove a ball Earth with a flat space-time that has a preferred direction in it, right? Where in fact, if matter truly bent space-time, it wouldn't just have a hole down here, but it would also have a distortion in all directions, right? This internal grid would be all around, and it would not be trying to force things down in one specific direction. So even this is completely backwards, true to form.
Reality doesn't work. You're not making things up to work with the way they want it to work, Bob. You're looking at like how things work in reality, and there's a complete disconnect with that. Complete disconnect.
I know, it's astounding. All right, let's continue.
It took Einstein about 7 years to realize that. But once he did, a beautiful model of the world emerged called general relativity. It makes several predictions that Newton's theory of gravity does not, and so far, it has passed all its experimental tests.
Yeah, name one.
One of the central precepts of general relativity is that we inhabit a curved spacetime. And in that curved spacetime, the orbit of the ISS is a constant speed straight line. The arc of a basketball during a...
In that curved spacetime, the orbit of the ISS is a constant speed straight line, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that the ISS is not falling around the Earth at all. No. It's going in a straight line from some bizarre perverted perspective, and it's only space-time that's curving around, and our senses are completely deceived, right? So even the astronauts, when they think they're going around the ball of the Earth, no. They're just experiencing space-time curvature, right?
Well, they don't understand the definition of orbit, because obviously orbit doesn't mean that you're going in a curve at all. Completely the opposite. means straight line.
Completely. Oh my God. Oh,
Good
geez.
grief.
It is truly believe. I mean, double speak all the way to the end. And like I said, guys, wait till we get to the second video. You'll think that this was a day at kindergarten. All right, let me finish this out.
This is why people drive with masks alone in their car.
Right?
In a straight line, though, only.
That's right.
A 3-point shot, constant speed, straight line. But you, sitting perfectly still in this chair watching this video, you, my friend, are accelerating, giving you the impression that there's a force of gravity when in fact no such thing exists.
Yeah.
Good night, man. That's just crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're accelerating, giving us the impression that there's a force of gravity. Of course, you know, like I said, Mr. Smarter Pants Every Day is going to completely turn this all around.
What he said was that if you're watching the NBA game and the guy shoots a free throw, the ball's moving in a straight line. Did he really say that, or did I hear him wrong? But me sitting in my chair, I'm in a trajectory, or what did he just say? I'm sorry.
I'll back it up again. Let's try.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
General relativity is that we inhabit a curved spacetime. And in that curved spacetime, the orbit of the ISS is a constant speed straight line. The arc of a basketball during a 3-point shot, constant speed straight line. But you sitting perfectly.
So, no, they're saying that an arc is really a straight line. Just like flat is really curved is really level, right? The same horse shit we hear from ballers, right? Level is curved, flat is a straight line, or flat is not a straight line, flat is a curved line, on and on and on. Everything is backwards from what it is.
You never used the old curve level on the construction site, guys? Come on, get the curve level.
Now wait, just think about this for a second. You are beneath the rim, okay? The rim is horizontal. The ball goes in through the top. There is no way a straight line is going to put that ball into that hoop. Sorry, just saying.
Well, unless space-time is curved, and we've all seen that, right?
Unless the hoop is moving, the whole hoop is turning for the ball, you know?
I know.
This is just...
it's beyond belief, man. It's like, and the ballers are out there going, yeah, man, see, man, that's totally the way it works, man. We got this. We got it. Yeah. Like, oh, you morons. Oh, my God. All right, let's finish it out.
Still in this chair watching this video, you, my friend, are accelerating, giving you the impression that there's a force of gravity when in fact no such thing exists. Wait a minute. How can geometry and straight lines possibly work the way I just said? Patience, Grasshopper. We'll tackle that another time. For now, just reflect.
Patience, Grasshopper.
Just enjoy the washing we gave you right now.
Yeah. Just, you know, how does
Just
that
marinate
feel?
in that wash. That nice brainwashing.
I feel like I need a shower.
I know, right? And, you know, honestly, for you ballers out there thinking you understand this, get a life. You don't understand this anymore. And if you did, give us one practical example that proves anything that they said is true. One thing. There isn't a single thing out there that proves the concept of relativity. You cannot apply attributes to privations. You cannot bend space. You cannot manipulate concepts. You cannot change time, right? Time is a concept. Space is a privation. They do not have these attributes. They are complete, they're conceptual, right? It's just utterly beyond belief that what they're telling us.
Conceptually, they work extremely well on a flat Earth, just because the fact that we live under a clock face of a sky in a space that dictates where you are in space is where you are in time is a real link to space and time, not bendy space-time, not curving and bending and moving. It's just a marker of where you are in space is where you are in time.
Exactly. In the flat Earth realm, that's absolutely true, because that's exactly what the clock is. It tells you not only, you know, the clock of the stars above tells you what time it is, but also where it is, right? So it's really something that is tangible, right? This is why mariners can navigate. using sextants, by using very simple, trigonometrical tools, right? A sextant or a astrolabe or anything like that,
A planisphere, any of the things puts
Planisphere,
you
right.
right on. It connects you right with reality. There's no mystery. There's no making anything up outside of it. It's understanding time is a concept that we're doing that, and space is where you are, and you can make a conceptual link between your privation and your concept. But in reality, to just again make up straight lines that curve, or curved lines that are really straight, or
Well, I know. And
the space is not reality.
I know it's right in line with their telling us that, no level is really curved, because of it's gotta be perfectly tangent to the center of the earth, which of course every micrometer would be at a very slightly different angle, right? Obviously. Yeah, I get the concept. Too bad it's bullshit. It's just not real. Curved is not straight, ladies and gentlemen. It's just curved is curved, straight is straight, and this is nothing more than sophistry trying to confuse you. And that's exactly what it is. This is used specifically to deceive you. This is the textbook definition of sophistry. All right.
Which, of course, is what the word NASA means in Hebrew.
To deceive, yes.
Or the other way of putting it is, if we can't dazzle you with our brilliance, we will try to baffle you with our bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're at the end. Let me just double check it though.
Reflect on Einstein's inspired thinking and how he got there. Maybe next time you get in a car or a train. We'll reconvene next time our accelerated paths cross in curved space-time. Last week we debunked...
Yeah, our accelerated paths, huh? And that's another thing about these accelerations there, Dr. Pete, Dr. Gabe Perez, is why can't we measure these accelerations? Why is it that there is not one instrument on Earth that can measure these accelerations? Even the thing that should be able to measure it, like an accelerometer or a gyroscope or anything like that, which should absolutely give us conclusive evidence. And I don't mean Bob Nodell's 15 degree per hour gyroscope. I mean a real inertially based gyroscope, not a fiber optic gyroscope. It's just not there. It's absolutely not there. So again, once again, they have nothing. And at least I'll say this, they have a gravimeter, which does measure the downward acceleration rate of things, whatever that is, whatever causes it. Of course, it's our proposition that it is caused by an electrostatic difference of potential, right? That causes that. But the point is that gravimeters, and of course, gravity means nothing more than weight, right? So that's another thing they've thrown in there to confuse everybody. But gravimeters actually measure different rates of acceleration. So again, no curvilinear paths. We don't see any of that, Doc. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, they give people like Foucault accreditation for proving Earth's rotation with his gyroscope. When he displayed it publicly, it showed no rotation, and they said there was astronomical drift or something like that, and that it did work. You just couldn't see it.
Yeah. It's always there, but you just can't see it, or you can't feel it, or what you're seeing isn't real.
Yep. Yeah, and there's plenty of old, real scientists, people who were, I've brought up quotes saying, there are so many discrepancies of the gyroscope not drifting, and you people saying it's because of bearing drag or this or that, or he's like, there's way too many discrepancies here. This needs to be, at least addressed.
Then the whole thing about bearings being too tight, to stop any detection of a 15 degree per hour. Like I said, we had John Savage himself. You did the 15 degree per hour one, right? And then it was Seventh Day True Seeker that did the 1.2 degree per hour. And not only did he do that one, but he did it with an astounding degree of accuracy, right? So they tell us this stuff, oh no, it's too binding to be able to do that. And yet we can prove that it isn't. And one person even had the balls to say that, when you put it on the 15 degrees per hour, that it was actually detecting Earth rotation, if I remember right. I don't know if that was you or somebody else, but it's like, oh my God.
I've heard it all. Don't worry. Yeah, it's not bearing friction. It's not the cable.
There's no motion.
Yourself and have a look.
Yeah. It's that it's not moving. That's what it is. There is no motion. There is no curvature. Period and period. And the gyro proves that beautifully in spades. So, all right. So now we're going to move on to this thing, why gravity is not a force. That's great. And again, this is the funny thing about this. And this is one of those complete juxtapositions of things. So let's ask something here. Let's go. Let me try my Google. Okay, Google, does gravity mean weight?
I understood. What does gravity mean? Is that right?
Yes.
Gravity has 3 different meanings. Starting with the most common one, gravity can be used as a noun to mean the force that attracts a body toward the center of the earth or toward any other physical body having mass. Is that the meaning you were looking for?
No.
Okay.
Go back to school,
can also
Google.
be used as a noun to mean extreme or alarming importance, seriousness as in crimes of the utmost gravity. Is that the meaning you were looking for?
No.
Okay, finally, gravity can be used as a noun to mean seriousness or solemnity of manner, as in, has the poet ever spoken with greater eloquence or gravity? Do you want to hear a few synonyms for gravity?
In the first definition, it says attraction to the center of the earth or attraction to any body that has mass. But the thing is, unless of course you are, what's that guy's name that did the experiment back in the 1800s or whatever, in his tool shed. I'm drawing a blank here. But no, where has there been any experimental evidence of mass attracting mass? And unless you're talking about something electromagnetic or electrostatic, there is none. There is no mass attracting on mass.
You're talking about the guy with his balls, yeah?
The guy with his balls.
Yeah, the 2 lead weights in the shed. It's been so long since Cavendish.
There you go, Cavendish, yeah.
Thank you.
So, other than him, there is no, and I don't buy that for a minute, but there isn't even alleged to be any experimental evidence for this mass attracting mass, and yet there it is on Google. So
I know, but the funny thing is that gravity, weight and gravity are synonymous. Gravity, that was the definition of gravity, was weight, right? Was it not? Am I wrong? Or am I Mandela?
No, it's Latin, gravitas.
Yeah, gravitas.
Meaning weight.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can't forget about Slice Barkane's experiment, the groundbreaking...
Well, the one that I debunked with the electrostatics. Yeah, that was actually really good for flat Earth, because what Slice Barkane wound up proving with his phony baloney Cavendish experiment is that those motions were caused by electrostatic charge potential. And that was easy to prove.
And that's why you have a Nobel Prize.
That's right.
Imagine that. And I'd be willing to go out on a limb and say that everything, every force, every movement is either electromagnetic, I'll say, potential.
I agree.
It's one of the two. Yeah, everything is.
That's it. That is the only force, right?
Yeah, electricity.
Zach, does your limb like shorten and lengthen, and that limb you're going out on?
Depends on who I'm going out with. So, da-dum-thump. All right.
Moving on.
Moving on. All right. So, yeah, that's the whole thing. So gravity is not a force, but gravity meant weight. And ironically, it used to be, at least, back in the day, they also taught that weight was absolutely a force, right? So if gravity is not a force, but weight's a force, even though gravity means weight, this is something that is slowly evolving, or they're trying to change the very definition of words and confuse you completely by introducing doublespeak instead of the original definitions of words.
And tell me again the definition of force, because if gravity isn't a force, then what the hell is a force? I mean, come on.
Well, force basically means push or pull, right? Strength energy is an attribute. Make any way through onto a physical strength to open by force, make someone do something against their will. If it's in science, it means basically to push or to pull, right? And of course, if you push a car, then the car goes from 0 to whatever, it's accelerating. It's in a state of acceleration. So,
right, but if I jump out of my window right here, I'm going to be compelled to hit the ground. So if gravity isn't a force, then what the hell is it? I mean...
Exactly. And that's part of the way that they're absolutely just completely obfuscating this issue. Again, they turn it around into complete and utter doublespeak. And so that's the one thing I wanted to point out is it used to be that gravity meant force. Force, it was caused by a force, and that weight meant gravity. Gravity meant weight, right? Gravitas or weight, right? And weight was a force. And now none of that's true because we have Einstein, which says the street hits you in the face rather than you tripping and hitting your face on the street. None of this is provable. In fact, it's laughable to even consider the concept of it. It's just so dumb. I mean, yeah, you could say from a certain perspective, yeah, I suppose you could say that, but if you really analyze what's going on, you watch somebody trip and you see their face come closer and closer to the ground and they bang it on the ground. It wasn't that the street jumped up and hit them in the face. It's just like, it's so ridiculous.
And how many other...
There would have to be nothing going on anywhere else. Like literally nothing going on anywhere else. That's how I keep thinking about it. I'm like, well, what about all the stuff that's going on around the world at the same time?
Like, what about my clumsy doppelganger in China?
Right? Apples falling, balloons going up. Like, what?
Yep.
And if everyone thinks that Einstein was universally accepted and lauded from the day he spoke his first words, I mean, who else has had a book written about them from 100 Austrian German scientists called 100 authors? What was it called? 100 authors against Einstein.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, in which they denounced him and accused him of leading science into the realm of pseudo-mysticism, not even pseudo-science, pseudo-mysticism, abstraction and speculation. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, but all the textbooks that are put out in all the schools, the Rockefellers can sell them for less than it costs to print the book, to make it. So anybody trying to put out real information, they can't compete with these giant mega families that have all this wealth. They can put out their narrative and push it on everyone.
Until now, Zach. Now we can even I can stick something out there that calls Einstein a shitbag.
Yeah, and he's credited with, of course, E equals MC squared, which was written long before he was on the scene. In fact, he just straight up stole it, right? Absolute plagiarism. So the guy's a plagiarist. He's an idiot. He's a liar. He's a sophist. He's a pervert.
But he makes great blouses.
But he makes a great blouse. Yeah. He's just unbelievable. All right. So let's go ahead and go over to this other video and let's get through this one. And this is the Veritasium. Like I said, if they cut off the Utream stream because of this, then just head on over to DLive, guys, or Rockfin. They are both set on free broadcast, but I will state for the record right now, we will be commenting on this for educational, for criticism purposes, and educational purposes. Every single precedent that is called forth in fair use, we are going to be doing that here. Okay? So Don't strike us, bruh. Here we go.
According to the general theory of relativity, gravity is not a force. There are no gravitational fields. Gravity is kind of an illusion. And in this video, I will prove it to you by blasting off into outer space.
Okay, so the first thing he said is that there is no gravitational force, right? There's no gravitational field. There's no gravitational force, which immediately debunks something that happened 2 years ago when LIGO detected a gravitational wave that traversed all the way across the universe, 1.3 from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? Well, that was only 2 years ago. And now they're already contradicting themselves, right? They say, well, it doesn't exist. Well, then what the hell are you detecting? What was it that traveled 1.3 billion light years that doesn't exist that you were able to detect and you declared to the world on Einstein's 100th anniversary of predicting this non-gravitational force that it was there? Wow, that'd be kind of embarrassing, right? If Einstein is saying that there is no such thing as a gravitational field of force, and then you detect it on his 100th anniversary of prediction of said non-existing thing, already we're into doublespeak. Already. Here we go.
I bet it was
Whoops, go ahead.
Just a joke. I was just going to say, I bet it was the Death Star blowing up. That's what we really saw detected.
Yeah, probably.
I was going to say Jabba the Hutt farted.
Yeah, it couldn't be any worse than their speculations, that's for sure. All right, let's watch Dustin manipulate his spaceship here. By the way, this is much better than NASA graphics. They really should hire him.
2, 1. Albert Einstein said the happiest thought of his life was imagining a man falling off the roof of a house. What made Einstein so happy about this wasn't Schadenfreude. It was the realization that this man, while he was falling, wouldn't feel his own weight.
Okay, and what is Schadenfreude? That's making fun of somebody that when they're in an unfortunate situation, that something happens to him. I think it's something like that, but I think that's what Schadenfreude means.
I've heard, now it was a comedy movie, but I heard it has something to do with your backside as well. Like,
oh, well.
Seeing something bad happen to your enemy's backside. Schadenfreude.
Oh, nice.
But that was in a comedy, I don't know. Yeah, that could have
Okay.
just been a joke.
Okay, well, I certainly didn't want to go there. All right, let's continue.
He would be weightless. And anything he dropped on his way down, well, it would remain stationary relative to him, or moving in uniform motion. The whole situation would be just like if you were in deep space, not near any large masses.
No, it wouldn't.
With your spaceship at rest or coasting along at constant velocity. Here, you would feel no weight. Objects would remain stationary relative to you, or if you give them a push, they would move in a straight line at constant velocity. And you would be the very definition of an inertial observer. You're not accelerating, not in a gravitational field. All the laws of physics apply in your reference frame, meaning there is no experiment you could do to distinguish your inertial reference frame from any other.
But Bob,
Yeah.
how could you not be in a gravitational field when they come billions and trillions of miles away from all directions, presumably any rocks out there?
The entire universe is held together by a big gravitational field, according to mainstream science, right?
Exactly.
Hey, what about the great attractor? How do you get away from the great attractor?
Yeah. And that's exactly why I like the electric universe, because at least they're looking at the universe as an electrical entity, which at least is provable, which at least has phenomena in it that we can demonstrate in a lab with plasma and high voltages and gas interactions, and everything that we see in our everyday realm, we can replicate in a laboratory. None of this garbage is replicable. And not only that, he's trying to tell you right here that there is no difference from the guy falling down right off the building and him being in space, not being around anything. No, they're two very distinctly different things. One is that you are counteracting this force of gravity because you're falling down towards it. But to think once again that you wouldn't realize that you're falling is nonsense. You would know you're falling. I don't care if you're in a box and you couldn't see anything outside of it. I guarantee you're going to know that you're falling. And if you don't believe that you are, then you picked the wrong day to stop smoking crack, right? I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Go and jump out of a plane. You will.
Your
arm, your sleeves will flap. I mean, it's just bloody nonsense, isn't it? It's literally just a thought experiment.
Well, and it's not only that, but I mean, even if you were in an atmosphereless environment, to think that you wouldn't feel the pit of your stomach crawl up into your throat like it does when you go down on some roller coaster rides, or if you have done a parachute jump like I've done several of them when I was in the military, and it is one of the most exhilarating things ever. And to say that you wouldn't notice that happening is so beyond the realm of stupidity that it's just dumb. Okay. You would recognize it. And not only that, because you would be in a gravitational field, so to speak. In other words, something is accelerating you down at the 9.8 meters per second. But in this theoretical Neverland world of outer space, they're saying that, well, no gravitational bodies are around to make any significant difference to your position. In other words, nothing would really draw you towards that, right? So you would literally be just floating there. So it would actually be more akin to being in like the Dead Sea, right? If you go to the Dead Sea, which is water that's full of salt, and you get into that thing, you can't help but float, right? So that would be much more akin to what he's talking about. But for him to say that basically you jumping out of an airplane and floating in the Dead Sea are essentially the same thing, it's just stupid. It's just dumb. So let's continue on.
Now here comes the big leap.
Yeah, big
Einstein
leap.
looks at these two scenarios and says they are equivalent, not just similar.
No, they're not.
Physically, they are exactly the same thing, which means man falling from roof is not in a gravitational field. There are no gravitational fields, and he is not.
And remember, what did LIGO detect? There are no gravitational fields, except for that one that traveled 1.3 billion light years. Again, why is it that we're in the same? I mean, we're what was it, 3 years ago that they detected that with LIGO? And I don't even know when this was made. Let's see when this video was made. Hell, it could have been the same October 9, 2020. So within just a couple years of each other, right? They're contradicting the current state of physics, point blank, between LIGO's reality and Einstein's nonsense, right? And of course, they're both nonsense. I'm not going to give any credibility to LIGO, and we've debunked that 6 ways from Sunday. But again, this is the whole thing. They will go on one area and tell you one thing, and then move on to another area and tell you something in stark contrast, and going around in circles, around and around and around, and it's always about turning everything backwards and upside down.
But this is a known tactic of how to brainwash people, is to confuse them. So it's the same as we're seeing today on the news. It's one mask, it's no mask, it's 3 masks. It's designed to leave you in a state of total confusion, which leaves you open to more brainwashing. It's a psychological tactic that's been well known for years. Jung talked about this. There was a fantastic video that was out the other day, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Where they were drawing. Do you know the one I mean?
Yeah, I do. And you're right. It is. George Bush even said it. Well, in my line of business, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over for people to get it. It's like, yeah, pound it into their head, right? And that's what it is. You tell somebody something often enough, it doesn't matter how big of a lie it is. if they hear it often enough and in enough places, they're going to believe it. That's just the way the psyche works.
And if they hear from a source that they trust, if they hear one thing and then something else that contradicts that one thing that's said from the same source, then it just leaves them in complete confusion. And that's a great state to be in if you want to brainwash and headfuck everyone out there.
Yeah, exactly. So pay attention to that, guys. Pay attention to the doublespeak that just continually goes throughout this. And believe me, I'll keep pointing it out, even if you're not paying attention. Let's continue on.
Accelerating. He is an inertial observer, just like Rocket Man. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, okay, I can see how both of these observers feel weightless, but man falling from roof is clearly in a gravitational field. I mean, he's right next to the Earth, and he's obviously accelerating. His speed is increasing by 9.8 meters per second every second, a fact that will become painfully apparent when he crashes into the ground. I know that these two situations look very different, but Einstein's equivalence principle tells...
Now, the beauty of this, guys, is they have gone, right, from not just him telling you, but him as his double, right, taking the opposing side. Well, I know this may look stupid, right? So it's like, okay, now we have the same guy telling us, the same thing. And it's in stark contrast to each other. And both of these, they're claiming, are reality, right? Because we've all heard, and we know what he just said is the classic definition of physics. And this, of course, the doublespeak definition is the relativity definition. But it's funny the way that they do this. They actually, made a double of him to, accentuate the doublespeak.
It's straight out of Tavistock.
Yeah. I'm sorry, John, did you say something or? Nope. Okay, let's continue.
Different, but Einstein's equivalence principle tells us the one thing to focus on, the experience of the observer. If they feel weightless, then they are in an inertial frame of reference, every bit as good as Rocket Man's out drifting through deep space. Imagine if Rocket Man, coasting along at constant velocity and not paying attention, comes upon a planet a long way off in the distance. An external observer might notice that the path of the rocket bends ever so slightly towards the planet, but inside, Rocket Man would remain oblivious.
Right. Possibly because of his vestibular senses may not pick up on that. But again, any decent accelerometer, like the one you have in your cell phone, would pick up on it in a heartbeat. So again, they're trying to bolster their case by the insensitivity of the vestibular system to prove their point. And they're just wrong. And if you can't see this, go ahead, John.
This is why you have an attitude indicator in a plane. Because that actually measures stuff and it doesn't rely on your vestibular system.
Exactly. That's why we have instrumentation. And like I've said a million times before, they always talk about, oh, you would never notice it. It's so little or so whatever. It's like, yeah, but the problem is that nothing ever notices it. No instrumentation notices it. And we certainly have that technology, guys. And that's the number one thing that you really need to take away from this. Is that we do have the technology to measure and predict, measure exactly everything that's going on. Anytime we hit any aphelion point, perihelion point, any change in any vector whatsoever, because of the fact that it is in a curvilinear path on all vectors, you will be able to measure that. And the fact is not only you can't, but you don't.
Well, and what's so fascinating to me about it is the globe Earth side of this does not argue that the Earth is not a fixed frame of reference, because it is. It is a perfectly fixed frame of reference. No amount of acceleration has ever been measured, and they're good with that. What they're not good with is their whole shtick is that we don't notice it. Our vestibular senses don't pick up on all of these different rotational velocities and orbital trajectories. But I'm here to tell you that I believe we would be able to pick it up. Certainly we would have instrumentation that could detect it.
Absolutely.
And we're left with the elephant in the living room, that the world is a fixed frame of reference. And I'm sorry, you can't have a spinning ball orbiting around curved linear paths in 5 different directions at once be a fixed frame of reference. It just simply cannot be. And yet that's what
right.
we've got.
And you want to know, here's the thing. This is what you need to understand about that is this, and you're right. Their problem is they'll say, oh yeah, it's a fixed frame of reference, right? Even though it's spinning 5 different directions at once and everything is moving with respect to everything else. But the problem is accelerometers do not work. Or let's just use laser interferometry for this type of motion detection. Laser interferometry does not rely on anything else's position. What laser interferometry relies on is your start position and where you are at each point in time, because it is able to measure through the Sagnac effect exactly what orientation, what direction, and then you can derive what speed that you have gone. Therefore, it's using its own frame of reference from where it started to where it is. That's how the laser interferometers work. But there is no test equipment that says, oh yeah, well, I'm going to base my speed based on Mars, which is basing its speed on, Uranus, which it just doesn't work that way. The way we measure speed is where we are to where we are going and using our own reference points from there, right? And that's how laser interferometers work. And that's the problem. When they didn't get a positive result of 30 kilometers per second in Michelson-Morley, then they had to come up with some fancy thinking, right? And then change the whole paradigm. And that's when, of course, when relativity was born, because they had to come up with an excuse that was plausible, even though, my God, I don't know how anybody could possibly think this was plausible. It's just doublespeak. So anyway, John, you're right. The problem is that, we don't measure things with respect to, other things out there. We measure things with respect to where we were and to where we are and to where we're going.
And I'm telling you, if they could argue it, the globe Earth side of this would argue that the Earth is not a fixed frame of reference. If there was any evidence that they had to point to contrary to what we're saying here, trust me, they'd have done it a long time ago. But the sad truth is they don't have a leg to stand on, and so they're fine with agreeing with the obvious fact that the world is a fixed frame of reference. They're fine with that. I just don't see how they can they can resolve this in good conscience, other than they're just terribly brainwashed, which, yeah, I mean, we've all been there. And hopefully they can just snap out of it, damn it. Wake up.
Yeah, we can always hope. All right, let's continue on.
He feels no force, experiences no acceleration. As the rocket gets closer to the planet, it goes faster and faster. But Rocket Man still feels weightless. For him, nothing has changed.
Except his acceleration. He is accelerating towards the planet. And again, whether he can feel it or not, an accelerometer would be able to measure it, but they're about to state that that doesn't happen.
So where on this journey would you say the frame of reference changes from inertial to non-inertial? An onboard accelerometer would never even register a blip.
Yeah, bullshit.
He has continued on his inertial path through space-time. So the logical conclusion is his frame of reference is inertial up until the instant he crashes into the planet.
So, in other words, his frame of reference means he's not moving until he obliterates himself on the surface of the planet. That just makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't buy into this at all. I mean, even taking the perspective of the globe Earth proponent, I just don't think I can get on board with this, even hypothetically.
I know.
And guys, there's a reason why I can't watch this.
I know. I'm sorry if I sound redundant on this, but I am just dumbfounded by how stupid this is. It has to be said. It really does. And if you don't see this, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Because this is so glaringly obvious, the doublespeak, the satanic methodology, Luciferian agenda that is involved here. And not only that, I'm not even going to go into the numbers that are behind this, but that's something Austin's very good at. But everything has a 666 origin in it too, but that's for another discussion. Let's continue on.
And we're not using the words Luciferian and satanic in terms of, we're all Bible believing religious people either. This is what it is. This is I don't know how to explain it, but anyone who's just come in and heard us saying Luciferian and satanic and this sort of stuff, that's
it's about inversion of the truth. I mean, that is sort of Satan's shtick, isn't it? I mean, according to that sort of mindset, he doesn't create things. He's only capable of lying, right? And so he distorts the truth and inverts actuality. I mean, that's all he can do. And yet, when it's in your face, plain as day like this, people still don't get it.
Right. Now, I'm going to answer a question from chat out there. Rachie00000 says, Globebusters, they say the accelerometer will not pick it up in space, just like when you drop a phone with an accelerometer in it, it says 0 meters per second per second. And you're right, it does say that. But here's the difference, and this is why I specified using a laser interferometer type of acceleration detection, because it's not working based on an inertial instrument. It's working based on the Sagnac effect, which is basically the motion of the object going through the luminiferous ether. And like I said, guys, you can't say that it doesn't exist, because ring laser gyros and fiber optic gyros are part of every airline's inertial navigation system. This is technology that is in use today and has been in use for a half a century or better. And it relies on the Sagnac effect. And the Sagnac effect relies on the presence of the ether. Okay? So, and again, that's the other thing. You have to remember, Rachie, the 0 meters per second, when you drop it, that's a calibrated number that's put into it. But who's to say that that gravitational figure is going to be that anywhere or everywhere in space? In fact, it's stupid to even think that it would be, because by their paradigm, you're floating through space and you've got a supernova over to your left and you've got a black hole over to your right and you've got a sun coming up below you, and all these things would be huge gravitational influences, right? So why would the phone accelerometer ever just sit there and say, anything related specifically to 9.8 meters per second? That's an Earth term, right? And so they're trying to extend that out into outer space and make you think that the rules are going to be the same there. Well, they wouldn't be, would they? That just doesn't make any sense. So again, and these are all part of the deception methodology that they use to fool you. It's just, it's just ridiculous. I mean, first of all, space doesn't exist. We've never been out there. Nobody can, we've never seemed to gotten above 100 kilometers, or if we have, it's not much above that, right? So who knows what really is out there? So to speculate on it is just that. It's speculating. But to state things factually about it is retarded. It's dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest.
I mean, and I couldn't agree more, Bob. The thing is, we can put our hypothetical hats on and we can go down this road with these globe Earth proponents or heliocentrists or whatever you want to call them for argument's sake. But at the end of the day, I couldn't agree more, man. Space doesn't even exist. This is all just so hypothetical.
Yeah, this is all just beating the dog down the road. It's crazy. All right, let's continue.
Okay, so how do you explain the curved path of his rocket without gravitational forces or gravitational fields? The answer is curved spacetime,
which we have never witnessed. We have never measured. We have never seen anything be influenced by curved spacetime, unless you want to count some mistaken Doppler shift, right? Which is more likely being influenced by magnetic field flux, right? We have nothing out there that demonstrates curved space-time.
Einstein thunk it. Does that count?
Yeah, and Einstein thunk it.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, continue on.
First, focus on Rocket Man's observation that the whole time he felt like he was moving with constant velocity in a straight line. He was...
But no, they just said that he didn't feel anything. Did they not? They were just talking about how he wasn't feeling anything like that. So they're even lying to you about what he just said 2 minutes ago. Wow.
Moving in a straight line through space-time. But space-time around massive objects like planets is curved. So that's why his path appeared curved to a distant observer. Now this isn't as unusual as it seems. Airplanes, for example, always try to fly the shortest route between cities. Essentially, they just go in a straight line. But since the Earth's surface is curved, the shortest path doesn't look like a straight line.
That's because things don't fly in curved paths because R has never been proven. Therefore, the curved line is simply to make up for transforming the ball Earth into a flat map, right? And then this, of course, is nonsense because really, when you look at these trajectories on a flat map,
they take a straight line path, don't they? Yeah,
that's exactly right. So it's like, you know, they're either using the curvature, the alleged curvature of the Earth, or they're using the dome perspective, personal atmospheric dome, right, that you see in, to claim this Earth curvature, or to claim it as an attribute of the curved Earth, right, or of the spherical Earth. But there's nothing about that that's true at all. And there's so many things.
They're assuming radius.
Yeah, they're assuming radius. They're right. That's right. But again, none of that's ever been measured. And now they've gotten down to the point now where they have to say that the physical horizon that is demanded by the heliocentric model, that is demanded that it be there, a physical horizon. Well, you can't see that. Even if it's only 1.2 miles away, you can't see that. No, you can't see it anywhere. And the only horizon you ever do see is an apparent horizon, right? And so many things contribute to that. Clarity of day, weather conditions, on and on and on. There's a million different things that contribute to that. But you know, the black swan has ultimately just destroyed this argument altogether. So R is dead. Everything that takes this concept from R also then has been debunked. Let's continue.
These shortest paths over curves.
Real quick, Bob.
Okay.
I know they're saying that they're showing the path flight, the actual, but especially to like a child or even adults, they would see that and see it as the plane gaining altitude and then going back down. Not so much actually flying up to Alaska and over Russia and through all these. It almost looks like they're doing a straight line and just doing a parabolic arc, kind of. Just point that out there.
Yeah, well, and of course, the other thing they say is, remember the little kids, right, that are sitting there going, it looks like it's going down. This looks bad, right? Does it always do that? And his dad's going, yeah, it does. And it looks like it's going down. And his dad comes back and says, no, what's happening is we're rotating backwards, right? It's not going down. We're rotating backwards at 1,000 miles an hour. I mean, wow. Let's continue.
Surfaces are called geodesics, and we use that same word, geodesics, for the straight line paths followed by inertial observers through curved spacetime. Here's another analogy. Imagine you and a friend are standing 1,000 kilometers apart on the equator. Now you both set off due north. Over time, you will come closer together, ultimately bumping into each other at the North Pole. It's as though there was a force pushing you together. But
no, it's not as though there was a force pushing you together. It's as though you were following a line that is convergent on a point called the North Pole, for God's sakes. Jesus.
Why don't they use the South Pole as an example?
Yeah, why don't they?
A force pushing you together? See, I mean, and this is supposed to be teaching like physics, right?
Yeah, buddy.
Jeez, oh, Pete.
Imaginary physics.
Yeah, that's why you have to use your imagination a lot, because all of this is, and they're even telling you the wrong shit to imagine. They tell you that you're following two lines of longitude, right? Well, anybody knows that all the lines of longitude start at the North Pole, go out They diverge till they get to the equator, and then they converge, right? So at the poles, those lines of longitude are convergent. And so if you're following lines of longitude, they're not, you don't have freaking some source pushing you together, some force pushing you together. You're following a damn line on the sidewalk that is convergent to a point. And this is so stupid that they would ever even use this as an example. Well, there it is. It's sophistry. That's what it is. Let's continue.
You didn't feel a force, and your friend didn't feel a force.
That's because there wasn't any.
Gravity is just like that force. It doesn't actually exist. The real reason for you coming together was that you were both on straight paths, geodesics, on a curved surface.
No, you were both on convergent paths on a straight surface. I didn't even get that right.
They're not
How do you have a
parallel
straight
lines.
path? How do you have a straight path on a curved surface?
You don't.
Well, again, straight is curved, level is oh God, I can't even say it anymore. It's so ridiculous. Everything is backwards. Everything is freaking backwards. And that is the premise of all this. This is the sophistry behind this. They are completely screwing with your heads.
That makes it relative, right?
Yeah.
If everything is forward and then everything is also backwards, it's just relative. So
Yeah, it's all
just
relative.
believe it.
Yep.
It's all good.
Proving Einstein right once again. Let's continue.
Astronauts on the space station are weightless. That means they too are inertial observers traveling on a geodesic. But the Earth curves space-time around it, which is why their straight-line path appears as a helix. It only looks like a circular orbit if you forget the time dimension. Don't forget.
So now they're saying that when we are watching the space stations supposedly orbit and go around us in a circle, that they're saying that it's really going straight. It's just space and time that are curved. That's what they're telling us here, guys. No, it's really going straight. It's just space and time that are curved.
Space and time have no physical properties, so how can it be curved?
Makes my head hurt.
I know, it does, doesn't it? But they just keep beating it in your head. It's designed to.
It is, exactly, Cammie, it is.
Okay, we'll try to get through this.
It's designed to make you abort, tap out.
Yep.
Reality,
yeah, it really does.
And make yourself, like, again, disconnect from it and completely memorize facts and then pretend you understand it so you can be smart, because as soon as you start employing your brain while memorizing, it falls apart entirely.
Yep.
It's designed that way. That way you can say if it doesn't make sense to you, you're just too stupid to understand it. And that's really quite the opposite.
Yeah, it is astounding. Absolutely. All right, let's continue on. See how far I can get before I have to throw up again. There we go.
Forget, we are all moving through space and time. Space-time. This is the standard bent sheet analogy for curved space-time. But I think this demo is misleading. It allows you to fool yourself into thinking you understand general relativity when the intuition you're actually drawing on is just that objects like to fall towards the middle of a well due to the gravitational force. But in general relativity, there is no gravitational force. What you should be thinking about is objects traveling on a straight line.
There's also supposedly no preferred direction, and yet this curving of the fabric of space-time always seems to be depicted in the downward direction, when in fact it should be distorting space-time in all directions around the accumulation of mass. But they don't depict it that way, and I'll tell you why they don't here shortly if it doesn't become radically apparent to you. Let's continue.
Path through space-time. It just so happens that space-time is curved around massive objects, so that straight line path doesn't look like a straight line. Matter tells space-time how to curve, and space-time tells matter how to move.
Yeah, right. And he flips the ball like, oh, yeah, see, aren't I a smarty pants?
Like that was some sort of checkmate or some God, dude.
Oh my God, let's continue.
Now let's go back to deep space. What happens if you turn on the rocket thrusters and accelerate at 9.8 meters per second squared? Well, someone outside would see all objects remain stationary, while the floor of the rocket accelerates into them. Inside the rocket, everything would appear to accelerate down to the ground, and you would feel a force pushing up on your feet, the same force that's pushing up on you as you watch this video. This situation feels exactly the same as being at rest on the surface of Earth. Because we are at rest on the surface of Earth.
But I thought being at rest on the surface of the Earth meant that you were constantly in curved linear motion. See, they just turned it around again.
I was going to say, I thought the guy in the rocket had no idea he was moving. What the... In the beginning, he didn't know.
Yeah. Does the ISS, does this happen to them when they go from 208 miles up to 250 miles? When they use their thrusters to lift them back up into higher orbit? Do they become weighted all of a sudden when they turn those thrusters on? Is that what he's saying?
You would
I've
think
never
that they
heard.
would.
Yeah,
You would
I've
think
never
they
heard them talk about that. About, hey, we fired the thrusters and look, we can walk around like we're on Earth now. You figured they would have mentioned that every time they do it.
Unless maybe that one scene where they all fell to the ground. Remember that? Maybe that's what happened there. Who knows?
So these guys this guy is actually trying to legitimize Einstein's the Earth is rising at 9.8 meters per second squared, yeah?
Yes, all the time. Well, criticizing flat earthers, laying it off like it was the Flat Earth Society that brought this notion to life.
That said it, yeah.
Yeah,
Good
when it
grief.
wasn't. It never was.
I
Wow.
thought they were shunning away from the fact, I mean, that it's obviously traceable back to Einstein, that it was his idea.
Now they've just doubled down to it. But
now they doubled down, haven't they?
Yeah, it seems they have.
They're
And,
like, hell yeah.
I hate to keep saying that sometimes I wonder if they watch Globebusters, but the first time we covered this was on an episode called Sunday Mass. And I revealed then at that time that this is about 3 years ago, that it was Einstein that actually came up with this. And now all of a sudden, and guys, I don't know if you have noticed this, but the Flat Earth Society seems to have disappeared. And now when you look up Flat Earth Society or anything relating to it, it redirects you to the International Flat Earth Society, IFERS, right? But doesn't really say much about Eric Dubé as it does his predecessor. And then it, of course, that's a whole nother show I could do, so I'm not going to go there. But that's really interesting what's going on with that. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody, that for some reason the Flat Earth Society seems to be disappearing out of these searches, right? Do a search right now. Even for the Flat Earth Society, it's hard to find. And like I said, what it redirects to is IFERS.
Yeah, I've just done a search for the Flat Earth Society and it hasn't come up at all.
Exactly. I got it to come up, but I'm searching on DuckDuckGo.
I'm on pre-search.
Yeah, and in Google, I was Googling. It doesn't even come up at all in Google. And the only thing that comes up in Google is redirects to IFERS.
Yeah, I'm not finding anything for the Flat Earth Society, which usually they used to be pretty easy to find.
Yeah, buddy.
Course,
remember I interviewed that guy.
But yeah.
Remember that, John? When I interviewed that guy, I forgot what the hell his name was. Pete Zavara or something like that.
Yeah.
From the name of the show was "It Is Time for a Meeting with the Flat Earth Society," and we had that guy Pete Zavara, or whatever his name was, on, and I asked him point blank. I'm like, where do you get this notion about the whole Earth rising at 9.8 meters per second? He didn't even answer that it was from Einstein at that point in time.
Wow, I had never heard that attributed.
That.
You would think, right? I really never heard that attributed to Einstein, but I guess it kind of does go hand in hand with general relativity, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you know what, guys? I think that'll be the next one that I post up on Rockfin. Next couple of them. One will be the Sunday Mass, which is really excellent. A good one to accompany this show tonight. But also It Is Time for a Meeting of the Flat Earth Society, because like I said, the Pete Warrior, or whatever his name was he's a very highly degreed individual. And I questioned him point blank about that stupid assertion about the 9.8 meters per second acceleration upwards. And he never laid it off to who it belonged to. It's like he owned it. It's like, wow. Of course, we knew that he was an agent regardless,
Well, that's it. For years on end, I used to get this thrown at me saying, you think the earth is rising up at 9, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, no, that came from Einstein. And they'd be like, no, don't be bloody stupid. And now they're owning it.
They'd never believe you if you had told them that, right?
Yeah. And now they own it. They're saying, yes, that's exactly what's going on. Okay.
It's crazy. I know. I mean, the game is changing right in front of us, guys. It's like, it's hard to keep up with it. It really is. But I was astounded. It's like, what happened to the Flat Earth Society? It's like, oh, great. And so now, and this is a wonderful thing, right? So now, this is another reason why Eric Dubé needs to take down his nonsense, his shill wall of shame. You go there and he has a picture of all the people at the International Flat Earth conferences, right? The big group photos is the shills, the shill wall of shame and stuff like that. So now the Flat Earth Society, people are going to go looking for that. They're going to get redirected to IFERS, and then IFERS are going to go to IFERS, and then they're going to see IFERS pointing at the entire rest of the community, anybody who isn't Eric Dubé, as
and does
shills.
Good work. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
which is really such a child.
Yeah,
he really is. He's such
a child.
He is.
Yeah, I've
he
gotten
really
a
is.
few emails lately of people asking me, "Oh, I'm just getting into the community now, and are these people really shills that Eric Dubé is saying are shills? Blah blah blah, this and that." And I don't even want to respond to the nonsense. I
Yeah.
don't. It's
6 years on, Zach.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, come on, let's get over
either
it.
we're the best shills in the world, or you get over yourself for crying out loud.
It's the long con, I guess. It must be the long con.
Yeah. And, like I said, Eric's done a lot of good work, but his shill calling that started with Mark Sargent went on to Jeranism. There's a whole section on there about Morgile, being a shill, me, Cammie being a transgender, right? Cammie and me both being transgenders. I mean, really, this, yeah, unbelievable.
Oh, what I like about this is I did look, and Bob is a shill because of his 3-pole map, which isn't Bob, is me. And the only reason I have 3 poles on the map is because when we open up the magnetics, that's what was
it's
there.
exactly what they resolved to.
It resolved to. I did not make it up. I didn't do anything. I used declination maps. I used every good piece of information as far as actual data.
Show me a quadrupole. Show me a quadrupole on a single magnet.
Yeah, never happened.
Right. Or a dipole. Again, they say it's a dipole, and yet we're shown they take that piece out for most people. But if you look at get it from the pilots, the center of the map is a quadrupole, not a dipole. And so it's like, okay, by noticing it doesn't match up, that does not make you a shill. That makes you paying attention. So it's just silly.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not really here to bust on Eric, but it's getting to the point now, especially when the Flat Earth Society, which of course, people, that's the first thing they think of. They're going there, they're being redirected to IFERS, and you have IFERS now, Eric Dubé, one of the major figures in this, calling virtually everybody else in the community shills and liars and thieves. And it's like, come on, this is not a good look. And Eric needs to do something about it. Now, if you think we're shills, great. You are welcome to your opinion. If you think we're in this to destroy it, welcome to your opinion. But we're not. We've put our lives into this. And
I can say for one that Eric woke me up.
Did a lot of people.
Interview on the higher side chats knocked the senses out of me and completely woke me up to this. So, come on, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of in the same boat when I first started looking into this. Eric was one of the first people's content that I ran into. And when I reached out to him, he responded by accusing me of being a shill. So, I mean, whatever good that does, I don't see room for it in this sort of a movement when we're fighting up against hundreds of years of so-called settled science. We're fighting against the establishment. We're fighting against the brainwashing of the curriculum of the school system. And then, of course, we're fighting against one another, too. I mean, what a shame.
Yeah,
we're fighting for our bloody lives. That's what we're fighting for. This is, if the last couple of years hasn't dawned on you what the hell is going on, then, whether you think people are shills or not, let's put that to a side. This is something we need to unite on, or we're dead
all
meat.
on the same side.
There's some people that are obvious shills, like Joe Rogan, right? I mean, hell, we've got him on camera saying, "I swear to God, I'll lie to my mother. You just show me how UFO work." Right? I mean, you can't get
Logan
much more
Paul.
obvious than that, right? But
There's been plenty of shills that have revealed themselves.
Yeah.
But no one here, after the last 6 years, has even come close to it, for crying out loud. We're all here learning. We're all trying to learn. The time for calling each other out and just superstition, basically.
Learning for sure. But
and
what about standing up for what we know to be true and right, in spite of, in the face of the negativity? I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand it, other than he just wants the whole podium and platform to himself, and everyone else that isn't on his camp or whatever is a shill. I don't get it. I mean, I do. I get it. It's sociopathic behavior, but
yeah. Well, anyway,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm not calling anybody a shill, but if you go look up the definition of shill, it's somebody who's implanted into a group to divide it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, who is doing that?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's certainly not us. I mean, we're not sitting here going, "Oh, well, this person does," yeah.
You
Granted,
smelt it, you dealt it.
Yeah, there are some straight up idiots in the community. There's no doubt about it. But rather than pay attention to them, I choose to ignore them because I know what they're saying is not true. I've been accused of being a shill because of my position on gravity by another well-known flat Earth group, and it's like whatever, if that's what you want to think, that's fine. But the last thing we need to be doing is turning on each other. And like I'm saying, with all this attention, that is on the Flat Earth Society and being redirected to IFERS, it's really time for that stuff to come down off of IFERS. It really is.
Right. Can I address this too? Because it's in the chat, like from Marcelo, who says, "How about you guys do your thing and forget this dude?" That's really what we've done for the last 5 years. Is we forgot about it, and we've done our thing. And again, I think his 200 proofs. At the conferences, a lot of people say it woke them up, and I have the highest respect for some of his work. But the fact of the matter is the only reason it's on our radar is that all the websites are being directed to him, and he makes a page that at the top of his page he has all of our pictures saying that we're shills. So the reason that we haven't forgotten about it is he does good work, but he's got that up there, and we're all on the same side. So it's just a grow up. It's not productive. It doesn't help anything. We all need to work together. We don't have to all agree of everything, but we need to work together. Go ahead.
I was going to say, not to mention his culty little followers like to go troll everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but again, I don't want to bash on Eric. His flat Earth material is solid, absolutely.
Legend.
He has his personality and his mental state. I'm not sure what to think of that, but it's far from what I would call mature. So, and let's just leave it there. All right, so let's get back to this. Because we're almost through it, and we're coming up on 3 hours here in about 25 minutes. So hopefully I can get through the next 10 minutes of this really quick. And let's finish this out, because like I said, if you cannot see the doublespeak in this by now, I'm beginning to think there may be no hope for you. But let's continue.
Now I want to ask you, are you watching this video in an inertial frame of reference? Well, I mean, do you feel weightless?
Nope.
No. So you are not an inertial observer. Your situation is exactly the same as someone accelerating on a rocket ship in deep space.
No, it isn't.
And let me be...
So I'm sitting here on my chair on my ass, right? I'm feeling my weight, but yet my situation is exactly the same as someone accelerating on a rocket ship in deep space. Yeah, holy crap. Yeah, whatever, dude. Let's go.
Be clear, I don't mean that being at rest in a gravitational field is like accelerating in a rocket.
But you just said that you did mean that. See, you can't even go 10 seconds without double speaking. That's unbelievable.
I mean, it is the exact same thing. You are accelerating and there is no gravitational field. Gravitational fields do not exist.
Well then, what did LIGO detect? Well, we know it was BS, but what do you think LIGO detected? Good question, right?
Background noise. It was background noise.
Yeah. It was a supervisor hitting a button that said, give a false signal to my dumbass controllers so that they can call the press and say we detected gravity waves. That's what it was.
They're up for funding, I'm sure.
Yep.
This guy's a psychologist's wet dream. Absolutely.
You
could do a PhD on this guy's alone.
It's unbelievable, truly. Let's continue.
Now, I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah, it does.
Come with me for a minute.
Okay, we're going to get the math now.
This is you. In standard Newtonian physics, we draw your weight force, the force of gravity pushing you down. And
wow, look at that. He just said weight was force and gravity is force. See? But a minute ago, they weren't either. But now, there it is.
And the normal force from the floor pushing you up. We say these forces are equal and opposite, so there's no net force on you, so you are not accelerating. But in general relativity, gravity is not a force. You have no weight, so the only force on you are these normal forces pushing you up. So you are accelerating upwards. But I'm not moving up. Relative to what? I mean, relative to the flip chart and the floor and basically everything in this room. But all of those things are in your frame of reference, which you know is not inertial.
Well, what relative frame of reference are we accelerating up to then? Dude, tell us.
Relative to everything in my rocket ship, I'm not accelerating. What you need, if you really want to measure your acceleration, is someone in an inertial frame of reference, like the guy who fell off the roof. And he would see you accelerating up at 9.8 meters per second squared. God. I think what this shows is that what an acceleration really is it's a deviation from a geodesic. You can't follow a straight line path through space-time because the floor prevents you from doing that. It applies a force upwards on you, so you're accelerating up. But
no, it applies a force in response called Newton's third law, right? Every action has equal but opposite reaction to your weight, which is a force which is pushing down on the floor. Okay. And, you know, for you to sit there and have to say that the only way that I'm going to be able to tell that I'm in motion is if I get a guy to jump off a building or go on a spaceship that is away from this is so ridiculous. Do you even hear yourself? Do you even hear what you're saying, Dustin?
I think my brain just killed itself. I'm serious.
It's beyond belief. This is pathological. I mean, this is just psychosis. This is unbelievable. And the entire...
There's so much double speak, they had to make two of them. Look.
Yeah, it's well represented. Double speak to the same guys. They represented it beautifully. They really did. Let's continue.
I'm accelerating up, and so is everyone else around the world, and presumably the whole surface of the Earth, then shouldn't the Earth be expanding? No. It is possible for you to be accelerating even though your spatial coordinates are not changing. I will show you one equation from general relativity. This says that the second derivative of your position with respect to time is equal to your acceleration, that's just F on m, and if you were in flat space-time, well, this is exactly what you're saying. If you're accelerating, your spatial coordinates have to change. But you're not in flat space-time. And this...
Okay, so basically what this saying is blah schmackety blah blah squared blah schmackety blah blah schmackety blah blah, which means that you're hauling ass going absolutely nowhere. That's what that means. It's like, wow.
In a straight curved line.
In a straight curved line. I am so impressed.
We're in curved space-time, not flat space-time.
Yes. Continue.
This term is related to the curvature of space-time, and this is your velocity through time squared. You don't have to...
How do you have a velocity through time squared? That's another good one. Boy, they're just introducing all kinds of neat concepts, aren't they?
Worry about the details here. The point is, your position can be not changing. This can be 0, which means your acceleration must be exactly equal to this curvature term times your velocity through time squared.
All right, now here's the problem with this, guys. Here's another problem with this, right? Remember what he said before. Remember the discussion between Einstein and Newton and how Einstein ultimately won that discussion, that debate, right? Because he said that, well, this all does work out as long as you are on a flat plane, right? A stationary flat plane that is accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters, but basically a flat geometry, right? Remember how he said that?
Mm-hmm.
But this guy is not saying that. He's saying that this is applicable to the ball, right? But the problem with that is there is, up is relative on a ball, right? In other words, so if I'm accelerating up where I'm here in South Carolina, I'm heading in one direction with the earth pushing at my feet in one direction so that I feel this acceleration. But whoever would be antipodal to me on the ball, wherever that is, I don't even know, China, whatever, would be then being drug around in outer space, right? Because the exact opposite effect would be happening to them, right? That's the problem. And that is why, Gabe, what's his name? Gabe Perez Giz said that Einstein won that by saying, well, yeah, it does work as long as you're on a flat plane, right? He's not saying that. This guy is totally not saying that. And not only that, it doesn't, not that it didn't make any sense before, but you cannot have acceleration all at the same time on all points on a ball by physically moving. You would have to be moving in all directions at expanding outwards all at the same time, right? Which means that the ball would be growing bigger and bigger and bigger, ultimately, infinitely. And of course, they may want you to believe that, but do you really think that's happening? Of course it isn't.
He's trying to apply it to a ball, but he's also said that one side of the equation could equal 0, but the other side of the equation can only equal 0 as well.
Right. I mean,
my head.
Equation, right? I mean,
right. If one side equals 0, then
the other side does too.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, and on silly props, Bob, I have that little hand-sized globe in my office, and I followed the little line around, and you were right. You'd be in China.
There you go.
Go ahead.
China. No wonder China's so weird. All right, let's continue.
So in curved space-time, you need to accelerate just to stand still. A lot of this may seem more complicated than Newtonian physics.
Oh my God, the double speak. The double speak is just priceless here. Let's keep going.
But one classical mystery looks a whole lot simpler in general relativity, which is why all objects fall at the same rate.
Well, they don't. Of course, that's a subject for another discussion, but the reality is that they don't. It turns out that things that have a different elemental makeup actually do have a slightly different rate of fall. And this goes right back to the electrostatic model, and we are currently working on experiments to prove just that, because obviously any mainstream information that shows this has been well hidden. And I'm sure that when we, finally do come up with something that is going to allow us to demonstrate what we're talking about, that ought to be interesting to see what the mainstream responses is going to be to that. But, even when you had Brian Cox, right, in the Sandusky vacuum lab, right, and they were dropping the bowling ball and the feather at the same time, they had so many cuts in that. It was ridiculous. Why would there be so many cuts? Why couldn't they just show one continuous shot of the bowling ball and the feather dropping all the way down from release to impact? They didn't. There were at least a half a dozen cuts on that, which tells you that they're hiding something. Why would they do that?
Good luck trying to use a clip of that in any video. You will get copyright takedown strikes almost immediately. I've never seen something other than like the Red Bull jump. I think that's the worst I've ever seen. Like, you can't use even 1/2 of a second of that. For real.
Yeah, exactly. Rachie says, Globebusters, I think he's saying the space coordinates don't change, but the time ones do. The problem with that, Rachie, is that they are intertwined irrefutably. They are inextricably intertwined. Time, space. They are one and the same, and they cannot be separated. So even if he is saying that, that is non sequitur to the entire time-space domain that they preach. So anyway. All right, let's continue.
Now, I have made a number of videos on this topic, and I would always give the standard Newtonian explanation. The only force on a free-falling body is its weight, g(mm) on r squared, which equals its mass times acceleration.
Did you notice he just said the only force on the body is its weight?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Weight as a force. There's a concept for you. Let's continue.
You can cancel the object's mass on both sides of the equation, hence all objects will have this same acceleration. The mystery is why we could cancel these two m's. The one on the left was gravitational mass, the property of an object that creates and experiences a gravitational field, while the m on the right is inertial mass, a measure of resistance to acceleration. Why should these two conceptually different properties be numerically identical?
That's a good question.
Scientists have spent a lot of time and effort experimentally testing down to around 1 part in 10 trillion that these two types of mass really are the same. But in general relativity, there is no mystery. All objects appear to fall the same way because, well, they're not accelerating. They're just following straight line paths through space-time until they encounter something that stops them. Like the objects in the rocket ship, they appear to accelerate at the same rate because they're not really accelerating. It's the floor accelerating into them. Now, a lot of this might seem pretty far-fetched, as it did back in 1915 when Einstein proposed it. So he very cleverly came up with a...
No, rest assured, dude, it still is really far-fetched.
measurable prediction that scientists could make to test his theory. Imagine that this rocket ship is coasting through deep space. If you shine a light beam across the rocket ship, well, it'll do exactly what you expect. Light travels in a straight line and hits a point on the opposite wall at exactly the same height as the source. But now, what if this rocket is accelerating? Well, to an external observer, they're still going to see the same thing, light traveling in a straight line. But inside the rocket, during the time it takes for the light to travel across the cabin, the rocket will have sped up. So by the time it hits the other wall, it'll hit a little lower than before.
Bullshit alert. Bullshit alert. All right.
Oh, this is so stupid.
This is analogous to the Coriolis effect, right? This
is so backwards.
It's so stupid. This beam is not bending down. It is not arriving down. It's just like what is happening with the Coriolis when you throw a ball across a merry-go-round and it appears to go to the right, to the thrower's right. Well, I guess depending on what direction you're spinning, but it appears to go one direction, but it really isn't, because when you look at the path itself, it's a straight line across. So this is exactly the same principle. He's saying that, well, by the time it gets over here, this much more of the spaceship has gone upwards. Therefore, it has physically bent the light down. No, it has not bent the light down. This is an optical illusion, or would be an optical illusion. And to say that it's being physically bent down is just retarded. Just stupid.
But I thought it was in the same frame reference as the rocket.
Well, it's in the same frame reference, just like you would be if you were on the merry-go-round with the ball and Coriolis effect. It's the same thing. Let's play it again and just listen to it really quick what he's saying.
Well, it'll do exactly what you expect. Light travels in a straight line and hits a point on the opposite wall at exactly the same height as the source. But now, what if this rocket is accelerating? Well, to an external observer, they're still going to see the same thing, light traveling in a straight line. But inside the rocket, during the time it takes for the light to travel across the cabin, the rocket will have sped up. So by the time it hits the other wall, it'll hit a little lower than before. So in an accelerating frame of reference, light deflects down.
And what exactly would be causing it to deflect down? What would be the force causing it to deflect down, especially if this thing is rising, right? Then what is
honestly,
causing it to deflect down?
I don't know what the hell he's talking about, honestly. Like, this is just such nonsense.
He is so smoking crack, man. I mean, this is just beyond belief. But this is absolutely another, horseshit analogy to Coriolis. I mean, you can see it. It's a dead ringer. No difference whatsoever. What he's explaining is the Coriolis interpreted to, relativity newfangledness.
Here, I am dramatically exaggerating the effect. Even if I were accelerating up at 10 Gs, which would probably kill me, the deflection would be on the order of the width of a proton.
Yeah, right.
Still, it shows that an accelerating frame of reference...
Yeah.
How many Gs do astronauts go up in? Isn't it something insane?
Oh, death G's. It should.
Yeah,
they should be dead.
G's would kill him.
Velocity is like 20-something thousand miles per hour.
Yeah.
But
of course, all of this is
actually go that fast.
No, all of this is complete imagination land in Narnia. None of it's true. Absolutely none of it. And guys, I'm sorry, ballers, if you believe it, dude, you call us dumb.
So pretty much he's saying it would be as much of a discrepancy as LIGO is measuring, like half a proton or whatever.
Yeah. They're saying by the thousandth of a width of a proton or something. That's what LIGO is measuring after the, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away event happened, or 1.3 billion light years. Oh, man. But remember, there is no gravitational field, so that couldn't have ever happened. So again, these guys cannot say anything without debunking themselves. They just can't, because that's what happens when you double speak about everything all the time. Eventually your bullshit's going to come around and slap something else in the face. It's just the way it works. So let's continue.
Will bend light. So, Einstein reasoned, light must also bend when it passes a large mass. But where do you find a mass large enough? Well, the only obvious huge mass near the Earth is the sun. So the ideal experiment would be to look at light passing just next to the sun and see if it is deflected, say, light from distant stars. The problem was, of course, the sun is just so bright you can't see stars right next to it, unless there is a total solar eclipse, which is exactly what happened in 1919. So Arthur Eddington set out to take pictures of the stars right next to the sun during totality. And what he found by analyzing those pictures was that their positions appeared deflected by the precise amount predicted by Einstein's general theory of...
Yeah, sure it did. You want to know why those starlight positions appeared to change deflected during the solar eclipse? Because of the magnetic field of the sun. Nothing more than that. The magnetic field distorted it. This is a well-known phenomenon. In fact, it's called the Faraday effect. And this is something that is very, very easy to prove. Now, as far as where he derived his actual numbers, I'd have to see that, because they don't clarify that. They just say, oh yeah, well, he calculated it that way, and that's what it came out to be. But we know that the sun puts off a huge electromagnetic influence, and even in mainstream physics, that light, which is an electromagnetic wave, right? Even though I want you to believe it's a particle, but it's closer to a wave. in that it is waving. It's not what it is, it's what it does. But it's waving, and that waving is at an oscillation rate commensurate with the induction rate of the ether, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, but it nevertheless, when you get light into a strong magnetic field, it will distort it. And I would say the sun is probably one of the strongest fields we have as far as that, besides whatever it is at the North Pole that's giving us that electromagnetic field. But yeah, so I don't buy this for 1 second. And to use this as proof for relativity, for nonsense doublespeak, is just more doublespeak. And there's nothing about this that was proven in any way, shape, or form, other than they looked at the sun during an eclipse and it shifted a little bit. Big deal. That means absolutely nothing. I could have made that prediction. Well, I just did. And I could have said, it's because there's a magnetic field there and it's going to cause a shift. Just like I could say that, there's an atmospheric field there or a firmament there and it's going to cause an optical shift. And you know what? I'm going to be right. And I can say that, but it doesn't mean that that is actually the cause of it, right? You have to have a little bit more evidence than just claims. You've got to have, you've got to be able to falsify it. You've got to be able to reproduce it, not just a one-time shot, back in the 1900s. It just doesn't work that way, guys. And this is ridiculous to claim this is evidence
of
relativity.
The real story of the 1919 eclipse has been taken apart ad infinitum. Just dropped a link into the chat. Yeah, well worth a read. It goes way deeper than you think, and it's way more nonsense than you think too.
Oh, really? I didn't know this. The eclipse data from 1990. Yeah, this is good. This is like right up there with, you really have to dig deeper to get to this stuff. It's just like, last week we were covering this guy that came out and he thought he really had the flat earthers because of the tsunami data, right? That was happening when Chile got hit with this big tsunami in 1960. And
yeah,
so
right.
He went up a projection on a map and said, yeah, this is when they hit. I was like, no, that isn't when it hits. And there's so many other extenuating circumstances to that. He can be proven wrong in a number of ways. But the good part of it is since we know the earth is flat, then tsunamis can actually be a really great way for us to prove it. Right?
Exactly.
So there you have it. All right. Well, that's cool. That's good to know. So let me go back. We're almost done with this guy, and guys, I'm going to call it a show. Let's just wrap this last minute up here. Here we go.
The result was twice the deflection some had calculated using a strictly Newtonian model. And general relativity has passed virtually every test put to it over the past 100 years or so.
Yeah, name one.
But there are still more things to try. A well-known and empirically validated finding is that accelerating charges radiate electromagnetic radiation. So one conceptually simple experimental test would be to compare the behavior of a stationary charge in a gravitational field to a free-falling one. If a more Newtonian picture of gravity is correct, well then the stationary charge should not radiate electromagnetic radiation, but a free-falling one is accelerating and therefore it should radiate.
Unless, of course, it is the electromagnetic or electrostatic charge in the first place that is causing the so-called gravitational force. So, of course, they don't bother talking about that.
In contrast, general relativity sees the free-falling charge as non-accelerating. It's just going on a straight line path through curved space-time, whereas the stationary charge is accelerating, and therefore it should give off electromagnetic radiation. Now, thus far, logistical challenges have prevented anyone from actually carrying out this experiment, but what you believe will happen reveals what you truly think about the nature of gravity. Do you think that a freely falling charge will radiate electromagnetic radiation or not? Is gravity an illusion? This episode was sponsored.
All right, there we have it. I'm sorry if your brain's hurt, but guys, this just had to be out there. And there's there's so many examples of this nonsense that it is just, it's painful. It really is. The doublespeak, amount of doublespeak that they go through is just over the top. And none of these things are replicable. None of these fit into any observable hypothesis that is testable. None of this. It's all complete fantasy. If Einstein, whips out an equation and then they whip out another equation and say, oh, here it is, it's proven, then suddenly science takes that in as dogma, and anybody that goes against it is, of course, a heretic, right? So I don't know what to tell you, but hopefully we've debunked this, because this is the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard. And I could honestly go on for a lot longer on relativity, and then we can go into special relativity. Maybe one of these days we'll go into that. But yeah, for now, I think we're going to call this good and say thanks, guys, but no thanks. We're not going to buy into this. Any comments?
Please don't go into special relativity. No, it's been a great show. It's a long time coming, and yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. Okay. Well, one thing I do want to do is I want to play the Platttoberfest presentation.
Real quick, Bob.
Oops, go ahead.
Can you add the links to just that Google search I put up there in the description, maybe? And well, really, all you have to type is was Einstein a racist?
Okay, yeah, I'll put all that in the links. I'll definitely add all the links.
There are so many different, and it's not just, it's the Washington Post and CNN, and I mean, they've all covered it. So yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Yeah. Not the ramblings of a wise person, one would think. Just saying.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and I want to play Karen B's Platttoberfest little promo here. And then we'll just talk to Karen for a minute about that, and then we'll get out of here. Does that sound good to everybody?
Sounds really good.
Okay, here we go.
Platttoberfest 2021 is almost here, and it's happening in historic downtown Spartanburg, South Carolina. This is a great opportunity to meet other flat earthers, connect in real life with online friends, and interact face-to-face without restriction, just as the creator intended. This year we have 2 full days of events planned for you, of presentations and live music. Featuring Marty Leeds of MartyLeeds33.com, Bob Nodell of Globebusters, Jason Lindgren of Secrets of Saturn and Crow777radio.com, and ODD TV will be performing live. Mike Williams from the Sage of Quay Radio Hour at sageofquay.com. Flat Earth Intel with Corey Kell. And some of your other favorite content providers will be there. More to be announced soon. Go to flatearthfestivals.com/Platttoberfest 2021 for information, updates, and tickets. Are you single? Are you a flat earther? Are you going to Platttoberfest 2021? Do you want to meet other flat earth singles? Then you should participate in the secret mingle for single flat earthers. A little something I'm putting together for FE singles who are going to Platttoberfest 2021. This is the perfect opportunity for you to meet like minds face to face in a friendly environment with no pressure. If you're going to Platttoberfest 2021, there's no extra cost. Go to flatearthfestivals.com/secret mingle for details. I hope to see you there. Cheers!
Excellent. All right, beautiful. So, Karen, how are we doing on that? Do you have any more surprise guests that you're able to announce yet, or are you still working on that?
I'm actually still working on that.
Okay.
I did ask Andrew Kaufman, and he said he was a tentative yes, but he has not been confirmed yet. So I don't really advertise it because I don't know if he's going to be there yet or not.
Right. I understand that. And we know that Austin and Chris from the Masquerade Tour will be back to join us there since they didn't make it on the last one. They'll definitely be here on this one, guys, and I will make sure of that. Unless he gets arrested again. Let's hope that doesn't happen, though.
Now, Karen has something else very, very special going on tomorrow night. So, Karen, why don't you share with us what's going on tomorrow night also?
Well, tomorrow night on Unveiling This Realm, we're going to have Stephen Carpenter from the Deftones join us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He's been a flat earther since about 2015. So he's been in it for a while, and he's just now starting to talk about it publicly the last few months or so. I don't know. He's been doing interviews, and I've been talking with him and texting with him, and he was on with me and Mark on Strange World, and he had a good time, so he was stoked. He definitely wants to come on with us. We'll take calls. It's going to be fun.
Love the Deftones. Love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, that just goes to show that there are, people out there that have known for a long time, but they can't talk about it. It's hard to take that step, especially for them when they have so much, on the table, so to say. I mean, that's their livelihood. You can't speak against the beast when you're in the beast system. It's just how it goes.
Sorry, I just crack up when I see that headline. Well done, John.
Yes, he was.
On that note,
just
a shout out to David Weiss and his app that no one can pronounce or say, but there is a friend finder on there coming up soon. And I can't think of a better way of doing it unless you want to keep your location completely anonymous.
Well, you can set it so it puts you in a general area and not specific, which I think is fine. I don't necessarily want to be pinpointed either. So, but
And the pinpoint feature works really well. It pinpointed me not only in the house, but like in exactly the place I had the phone in the room. It was actually kind of creepy. It was better than any GPS I've seen. I do know somebody on our panel that knows how to say what the app is. Karen B, would you do the honor?
The Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app.
There you go.
There you go.
It only took me like 2 years to finally learn how to say it right.
I know. Well, we have.
There's a few of them out there, so be careful because the one that Dave made is by Blue Water Bay, and it is a paid one, $2.99. So if you get one for free, do not send David Weiss an email telling him his app sucks because that's not his app. He's tired of getting them.
There you go. All right, cool. All right, John. Well, then we will. I say, if you have anything else besides Einstein was a shitbag, any other comments that you want to say before we let you go?
I think I'll leave it there. We've done a good job tonight. Been fun, really good fun, and I hope you all have a good week. And I'll see you next week.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. And Karen, why don't you let us know? You got the Deftones coming up with Stefan. And let everybody else know where they can find you and what else you're doing. Although I know most people in the community know you, but if they don't, then they need to subscribe to you because you are the hardest working woman in flat Earth business. That's for sure.
Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. But yeah, I will be. Let's see, where can you find me? Rockfin.com/Karen B. YouTube.com /C/Karen B, I think is the URL to the channel, but pretty much just Karen B, except for Twitch. It's Karen_B_FE are all the places you can find my streams. And also flatearthfestivals.com is my website, and that has all the information for Flattoberfest and any other events that'll be going on. And also you can sign up to the mailing list so that if you want to get notified in advance about any other events that are going on or anything else, you can sign up to the mailing list. And I don't give away anybody's addresses. I keep those all private for my own little list. And I guess that's it. Tuesdays I do Strange World with Mark Sargent. Thursdays Unveiling This Realm with Brian. Saturday I do Anti-Religious Scripture Study with Just Jack Flat Earth.
Outstanding. All right, beautiful.
And Coffee Talk. Now
that's right.
Coffee Talk.
Coffee Talk.
I forgot.
Wonderful. Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, Karen. It's a pleasure as always to have you. And, we'll look forward to the next time we have you on.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome. Okay. So let's cruise around to John the Morgile. John, what do you got coming up, sir?
Hey, great show, guys. Had a lot of fun hanging out with you and just bashing on Einstein. That's always fun. And just keep a check on the Morgile channel on YouTube. Nothing fancy. We got more content coming up in the works, so be on the lookout for that. And we'll see you guys on Sunday, God willing.
All right. Sounds like a plan. We'll see you then.
All right.
All right. And Zach, let's bring it around to you, sir. What do you got coming on?
Just the usual. I'll be doing Ironworks Friday morning and Iron Rail Media Friday night. I did a video, but Disney took it down. They didn't allow it to stay up. I used only 2 minutes of a movie, but yeah, it was a good one.
What was the name of the movie? Because
promoting Disney, but Free Man. It's called the Free Guy. I think it's called
Free Guy. Okay.
Free Guy. Yeah. And there's so many flat Earth references. It really moved me. It really did. I'm not, a big fan of new movies, but it was I recommend it. It's a good watch. And it's funny. I was laughing, especially for gamers, people who play video games, because that's what it's about pretty much, is an NPC in a video game who wakes up and realizes it.
Oh, wow.
And what he does. Yeah,
excellent.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, cool story.
Keep our eyes on. Cool story, bro.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and last but certainly not least, or I would be in trouble, Cammie, my dear wife, what do you have coming up?
Oh, people can find me anywhere and everywhere. I pop into Globebusters at times. You can sometimes see me on Iron Realm Media, on my channel at Aislinn717, on Rose's channel, on Karen's channel. Just keep your eyes out for me. You for sure will find me at Flattoberfest.
Awesome. Yes, you and Zach will be doing How the World Works there, which is definitely a crowd favorite for sure. So excellent. All righty, guys. Well, that's going to be it for our Wednesday night show. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you this coming up Sunday for a all new show. And I think that's about all that we have. So see you on Sunday. Till then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.